right, and hardly a cloud in the sky, and it's warm. The temperature right now 87 degrees. The wind is blowing out toward left field. Should be a good day for baseball, Ray Fosse, and especially the hitters.
Best part of this stadium is beginning with this song.
Oh yeah,
AC/DC Thunderstruck. I mean, it's like the NBA Bulls.
Yeah, when I think of you, I think of AC/DC.
Yeah, right.
Songs like that, Ray. Yeah. First thing that pops into my head.
I'm sure it does. But doesn't this give you the atmosphere of the Chicago Bulls? You know, they introduce everybody. Of course, the chairman owns both teams, so I guess he can do whatever he wants,
That's
right?
Mr. Reinsdorf. He's won a few more rings over on the basketball side of things, but he can claim the 2005 World Series title.
And he has the baseball that Paul Konerko gave him to him. Paulie gave it to him at the celebration. What a thrill that had to be for the chairman.
Oh, yeah.
To get the baseball from the championship. It took him forever to get.
Their drought, it wasn't as long as the Cubs, but it was pretty long.
17, was it?
Yeah,
17 to 05. The Cubs still waiting. Tell you, if Joe Madden and the Cubs win, this city, whew, can't even imagine what would happen in this city.
Jose Quintana warming up for the White Sox, as Vince said, out of Colombia. He is 26 years of age, 9-10 at 3.53 ERA. This is a battle of lefties, and the A's have had their issues with left-handed pitching this year, but not so much recently with the additions of guys like Danny Valencia and Jake Smolinski, and they're both in there today. It is a gorgeous day, and it's been amazing that the same weather conditions for all 4 games of the series. Warm, windy, and the wind blowing out. And here's Semien on his birthday facing Quintana.
Might see everybody wearing sunglasses today because of the glare on the field.
And now the lefty ready. We're underway, and a fastball high. 88 degrees officially at first pitch, and the wind out of the south at 19.
Repeat.
Yeah, Bob Rosenberg on the in-house PA, the official score, and a strike on the outside corner. 1 ball, 1 strike. Semien, Canna, and Laurie for the A's.
It's good to see Marcus Semien in all 4 games coming back to Chicago, the team that traded him to the Athletics. Been playing well in this series.
Had a very good defensive game last night. Off speed, that's line foul, left side out of play. Defensively for the White Sox today, they have Mike Olt at first base. At second is Micah Johnson. The shortstop, Alexi Ramirez. Tyler Saladino is over at third for Chicago. As Quintana gets set for the 1-2 pitch to Semien, and it's on the way, and Marcus takes low, and it's 2-2. The outfield of Melky Cabrera in left, J.B. Shuck in center, Avisail Garcia in right, Tyler Flowers behind the plate. And a break for Sean Nolan, and also for the A's, Jose Abreu is not in there today.
They just walk him as many times as possible. First base open, second, third, doesn't matter. Well, just walk him.
So here's the pitch, and the 2-2 delivery now to Marcus, and that's on the inside corner. Ring him up, and that's the way our ball game begins. So Quintana strikes out Semien, and that'll bring up Mark Canna.
That's an important pitch for a left-handed pitcher, the fastball inside to righties, because Quintana does not throw exceptionally hard, so you think he's going to pitch you away, try to fade the ball away from the right-handers. You can try to go to the opposite field. So it could be a purpose pitch inside to set up outside, or in this case, get the corner and get a strikeout.
So here's Canna, who's batting at .259, and now the pitch by Quintana is on the way with 1 out in the first, foul back. A very special night here last night for Canna and Semien, and for the White Sox starter Eric Johnson.
And for Bob Melvin.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of Cal products.
For those 3 guys, Canna, Semien, and Johnson were teammates at Cal, and Johnson and Semien were roommates in Berkeley. Bo Mel piloting the A's and battling every game, and the pitch taken outside, and the count 1 ball, 1 strike, despite the struggles of the A's pitching staff. And you can say, well, there's just 2.5 weeks left in the season, but they still want to taste victory every time they go out there. Here's the 1-1 pitch, and Canna takes outside, and the count 2-1.
I've seen some managers that, you know, get this time of the year and you're out of it, just kind of play out the schedule. Bob Melvin, he prepares, and I know we've talked about it before, but prepares to win every game. And I think that's special for a manager to have that attitude going in. 162, try to win them all. And of course, no, you're not going to do that, but at least attempt with every game. 2
balls, 1 strike, just getting started, top of the first, no score. Quintana deals, and Canna lines one down the left field line, hooking foul out of play by about 5 feet.
I think the other side of that too is that even with all the changes with the roster, you're impressed that the players are still engaged for Bob Melvin, that they play hard and they play a certain style of game that he expects no matter where you are in the standings.
And I think that goes back to 2012 when the team was not supposed to win, and those players that he had, much different than the players today, but they did the same thing. And I think, to your point, well taken, because they play hard because their manager wants them to.
Melvin made his A's debut as the A's skipper back in 2011 right here. So 2 balls, 2 strikes with 1 out. Canna waits. Quintana fires, and a fastball swung on and missed. Out number 2, and back-to-back Ks for Jose Quintana.
Still see Hideki Matsui on the top step when Sizemore got the hit in game 2 of that his series. Whenever he
2 outs and nobody on base when that rally started,
and a walk. Gosh, how often does that happen?
So here's Brett Lawrie, who's batting at 269, and Lawrie takes low, and it's 1-0, and that was after a brutal flight from Baltimore.
Yeah.
Laurie's 3 for 9 in the series. 2 out, top of the first, no score. Quintana deals, and it's outside. The A's against the Astros. Oh, he got me that time. The plate umpire DJ Rayburn. The A's and the Astros tomorrow night down in Houston, and the Rangers lead the Astros by a game and a half now. Here's the 1-1 delivery, and that's a strike on the outside corner. 1-2. The Rangers have won 3 straight over the Astros. They've flipped everything in the division at the top. So Texas a game and a half over the Astros, 5 over the Angels. Lawrie swings and fouls it back, and it's 1-2. The Angels losing to the Mariners last night, so they're 5 back. Mariners 8, the A's 16.5.
And the Mariners had to, or the Angels had to fly all night to Minneapolis.
That's right. They begin a 4-game series against the Twins at Target Field tonight.
Payback.
Yeah. Here's the 1-2 with 2 out, and it's on the way. And swung on and missed down in the dirt. The tag applied by Flowers. And for Jose Quintana, he works a 1-2-3 top of the first, and he strikes out the side with the White Sox coming up in the bottom half.
I can't see the monitor.
Top half, and you can start planning your 2016 spring training trip now, as home dates for games at Hohokam Park have already been announced. You can enjoy a first-class experience and get an early glimpse at next year's ball club at the A's all-new spring training venue down in Mesa. And for more information, you can visit athletics.com/spring today. It is a great place to visit. Nothing like it. Just the atmosphere around the spring training ballparks, Ray.
I might even see Will Ferrell come out and play all 9 positions, 10 positions.
Do that again?
I think he's done. He had the premiere past Saturday on the 12th, so that was a fun time.
Sean Nolan 1-1, a 3.09 ERA, getting into his third start with the Athletics. The former Blue Jays prospect, and Micah Johnson leads off and takes ball one. Johnson, Ramirez, and Cabrera for Robin Ventura's ball club. Big kid, 6'4", 229. Nolan fires, and a big cut by Johnson. Swings and misses. And now 1 ball, 1 strike.
Really one of the better pitches for Nolan that we have seen in just a couple of starts, I think, with his changeup. Reduces the velocity from his fastball, same delivery.
Here's the 1-1 pitch, and it's swung on foul back out of play. And he was one of the pitchers down in Nashville, heavily influenced, Ray, by Barry Zito.
Right. And for a lefty, talking to Barry Zito, an outstanding lefty, that had to be special. I know Kendall Graveman was very happy to be able to spend time, or that Barry spent time with him.
Here's the pitch by Nolan. There's the curve, and it's hit foul left side back out of play. 1-2. They just have Canna at first. They have Laurie at second. Simeon's at short. Danny Valencia's over at third. Josh Fegley behind the plate. Smolinski in left. Tyler Ladendorf, the local kid, he's out in center field. Reddick's in right. And now the 1-2 is swung on and popped up. Third base side, playable for Valencia. Crossing the coach's box. Out number 1 in the bottom of the first.
I think the good thing about Sean Nolan, wearing the number 47, Gio Gonzalez to throw a good fastball velocity-wise. Sean gives you the impression that it's a good fastball velocity-wise, but it's not there. And I think that could fool a lot of hitters. And we have seen that in his couple of starts.
So here's Alexi Ramirez, and he had good velocity coming out of the bullpen on Tuesday night in the 9th inning.
He might have been throwing harder than a lot of guys.
He was. He's batting .252, 10 home runs. Bottom of the first, no score. Fastball on the outside corner. One thing about Nolan, though, Ray, is that if you looked at the gun in Texas when he pitched on Saturday, he didn't hit 90. The 0-1 pitch is outside, off speed, and the count 1 ball, 1 strike. But the A's were convinced that the gun that night was slow.
Right.
And that he actually was up around 90, 91, maybe touching 92 a couple of times. Ramirez takes a ball, and it's 2 balls and 1 strike.
Which makes you believe that you can manipulate the gun, which I think you can. I think it is done throughout the American League. We see.
Here's the 2-1 pitch. It up the middle, back a second into center field. A base hit for Alexi Ramirez. So the White Sox have their first hit. 1-out single by Ramirez. That would be to affect the hitters somehow,
yeah,
right?
Either way, one way or the other. I mean, if a guy throws real hard, you want to make sure that hitters. Actually, I think the hitters need to know exactly how hard the ball is thrown. And of course, they can look on the board here. I don't know if Ramirez was watching the first hitter just to see what the velocity was.
Here's Melky Cabrera, switch hitter, batting right against Nolan. Sean was a 6th round pick of the Blue Jays in 2010 out of junior college down in the Houston area. Fires inside 1-0. He grew up in New York, in a place called Seaford, New York, which is on Long Island near the coast out there, and then went to junior college at San Jacinto JC, and drafted by Toronto in 2010. Melky Cabrera, and off speed down and away, 2-0. And of course, Nolan coming to the A's in the Josh Donaldson deal this past offseason in late November. (2-0) to Cabrera. Fegley sets up outside, and the pitch is taken inside. 3-0. Tough year for Nolan in terms of injuries, Ray. The A's didn't see a whole lot of him during the spring. He was coming back from double sports hernia surgery. Avisail Garcia is on deck. And now the 3-0. The runner goes. It's taken for a ball, and that's ball 4. So Ramirez was running on the 3-0 pitch. Cabrera took the pitch for ball 4. Now the White Sox with 1 out have 2 on.
Adam Eaton did it on 3-0 as well. And I think what happens a lot of times, the pitcher's so much concentrating on throwing a strike, he forgets about the base runner. And Ramirez is kind of walking lead off first base. Probably the best thing for Fegley is he dropped the ball because he loves to throw. On ball 4, you do not want to throw the ball to second base and have it get by the infield.
Remember, Billy Burns earlier was thrown out on a 3-0 pitch.
That's right.
At second base. Is that against the Angels, Ray? was fairly recently,
Yeah,
and Bob Melvin said actually he was okay with it. He thought a 3-0 pitch was a good pitch to run on.
Well, it's going to be a fastball. It's going to help the catcher, but I think a lot of it, if the pitcher just concentrates on the hitter, I think more going to.
Obviously, Garcia takes a strike on the inside corner.
I think because if guys running 3-0, there'll be more attention paid to them now on a 3-0 pitch instead of just getting the sign and assuming the hitter's going to be taken and the runner's not going to be going.
Garcia's at 267, the former Tiger. And here's the 0-1 on the way with 1 out. Off speed inside 1-1. For Nolan, the numbers in AAA at Nashville, he was 2-2 and a 2.66 ERA. Last time out against the Rangers on Saturday, pitched well in Arlington. 5 2/3, 5 hits, a run. He walked 2, struck out 5. He allowed a home run to Mike Napoli. Garcia, right-handed hitter, and it swung on and a high pop on the infield. Nolan going to give way. Simeon is there. The infield fly roll is called, and Simeon between the mound and second base makes the play for the second out.
That's a big out. Garcia's had a few difficulties, and that was a big one considering Nolan was having a tough time throwing strikes.
And Ray, you're always going to be linked with Avisail Garcia.
Only as a member of the Tigers, though. We forgot about that. But listen,
you almost broke Catronio's shoulder on that base hit to right field.
Man. It was exciting.
Division series.
It's a game winner, man.
Yes, it was.
Still taking physical therapy, by the way.
Here's Giovanni Soto, the former Athletic. 2 on, 2 out. And a whirl and a bluff by Nolan, and back to second goes Alexi Ramirez.
Somebody said they put that on their answering machine. I'm not here, leave a message, and then hear that scream. It's that fool making that screaming call on it. Game winner. That's why baseball's exciting, man.
That's right. Here's the pitch, and a strike on the outside corner. I didn't mind that you obliterated my call. It was fine.
Well, it wasn't as bad as Jason Kendall making the play down in Arlington, Texas in the 10-9 game when Dukeshire spiked the curveball. And
no, it was great. Like I've said, it was unvarnished enthusiasm. Here's the 0-1 pitch to Giovanni Soto. Fly ball right field, playable. And Reddick angling toward the line to make the catch. And Nolan works out of it as the White Sox leave 2 runners on base. And after 1 complete, it's the A's and the White Sox. No score. On board early with 2016 priority seating and choose your exact seating location for next season. The A's offer a variety of full and partial season plans that qualify for great benefits, including half-price parking, a flexible ticket exchange program, and more. For more information, you can call 510-638-GO-A's or visit athletics.com/2016. Jose Quintana goes to work in the second. on Danny Valencia, who chops one to third. Charging Saladino, fires to first. One pitch, Valencia is taken care of. Top of the second, no score. Saladino playing at third base today after Mike Olt got the start in the first 3 games of the set over at third. So Valencia is out number 1. Mike Olt playing at first base in the ball game today in the absence of Abreu. And Billy Butler coming up for the A's. Butler, the home run last night, is 12th. Billy batting .386 in his last 16 games. And Quintana comes to the plate. And a strike on the outside corner. Quintana, as he faces Butler, is one of only 13 major league players from Colombia. Here's the 0-1 pitch and swung on line to right. That's playable. Garcia is right there back near the track to make the catch. So although Colombia has put out some good players, just not that many.
How many teams now are represented in Major League Professional Baseball?
How many countries?
Yeah, I mean, how many countries? I'm sorry, yeah, because it's got to be 12, 13, 14. I mean, it's amazing how many. You think about Ichiro from Japan and
the influx of players from Cuba.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's not just the kids in America are playing Major League Baseball.
Here's the pitch, and Reddick takes a strike on the outside corner. 2 out, top of the second, no score, and that's why things like international slot money, you hear about that a lot being so important. Lefty on lefty. Fegley make it Flowers, sets up outside. The pitch is a ball, 1 strike. That's how the A's acquired Cody Martin, who pitched last night. He is in that deal, international slot money, or the bonus slot going to the Atlanta Braves. 1-1 pitch is swung on and missed by Reddick, and it's 1 ball, 2 strikes. Beautiful day for the fans to enjoy a little baseball on the south side. And here's the 1-2 pitch by Quintana. A little hesitation. It's on the way. Reddick takes inside 2-2.
Have to wonder if the Astros are paying attention to this game just because it's a day game. And they were going home to take on the A's over the weekend. They have to be looking forward to going back to their home park for the next 9.
And now the 2-2 with 2 out, and Reddick gets a tapper wide of the bag at first. Up with it, bobbling is Olt, and he has no play. Flips to first way too late. That's going to be an error on Mike Olt.
Repeat, E3. Thought Mike Olt, when he hit the home run last night, that kind of settled him down defensively, but playing at third base, now over to first base, and probably tried to make a little bit too much out of it, and the hustle by Reddick maybe forced him to do it. But he just missed it, and charged the ball maybe unnecessarily, but when Reddick runs hard, that changes a lot of the infielder's mindset and trying to field and throw.
So he's at first with 2 out, no score, top of the second. The Astros do have a game tonight against the Rangers. Looking to avoid getting swept in a 4-game set. The former White Sox Fegley stands in. And the pitch, and a breaking ball backdoor strike on the outside corner. Do you think the White Sox had to make a choice, Ray, between Fegley and Flowers?
I would say Fegley was on the lower part of that. I think they feel they made a mistake in letting him go because he's matured into a very good major league catcher because he's been given the opportunity with the A's.
The 0-1 by Quintana is swung on line foul left field side, out of play, and the count 0-2.
A good throwing catcher is always very valuable, and I think also Fegley does a good job thanks to the great work by Marcus Jensen, the A's catcher, who works with the catchers to he does a great job working on blocking balls in the dirt, and they do the job that they're supposed to behind the plate, which is very important.
Throw to first, got Reddick picked off, and Olt a double clutch, and Reddick gets to second base. He was picked off, and Mike Olt could not throw the ball down to second. I don't know if one of the infielders might have been late getting over, Ray, but Reddick is at second, and officially that's a stolen base.
Oh, poor Mike Olt.
No, Johnson was there. He was getting over there.
Maybe he got caught in a webbing, and like Featherstone that happened with the Astros, but
he just could not throw the ball.
No. Maybe he never had the grip on it, and it's amazing. Not get a base hit.
So the 0-2 to Fegley on the way. Runner in scoring position. Breaky ball in the dirt. Gets away. Reddick's going to third. The throw, the tag, and he is out at third on the tag by Saladino. So a mistake right there as the third out is made at third base. The ball getting away to the right of the catcher, Tyler Flowers, and Saladino applies the tag on Reddick. And that's the way the top of the second comes to an end, although the A's are thinking about challenging this. For the final out of the top of the inning. And so with Reddick retired, now the Sox come up in the bottom of the second. And Mike Olt leads it off. Olt, Shuck, and Flowers no score. And the pitch by Sean Nolan on the way, and Olt takes a strike on the inside corner. Olt, the home run last night, and I guess the only defensive Olt on the pickoff, and then what turned out to be the stolen base would have been maybe the angle on the throw to second for him, right? And the pitch for a ball, 1 strike.
All I know is every time you make a great defensive play, you always lead off the next inning.
That's axiomatic then, right?
It could have been the angle. Defensive shifts now really messing up a lot of guys.
Off speed is taken inside, 2-1. Frank Thomas had an awfully tough time with that throw.
Yeah. Jason Giambi did too. He gets so upper body strong and bulked up, it takes away that fine tuning in the throwing.
Here's the 2-1 pitch, and swung on it, popped up. We might have a play on this, and just below us here at U.S. Cellular Field, 2 balls, 2 strikes.
How about Mike Olt hitting a home run for both the Cubs and the White Sox in the same season?
The only player.
Yeah, that's amazing.
The only player ever to homer for both those teams in the same year. So here's the 2-2 and a ground ball to third. Danny Valencia is right there and guns it across. That's out number 1.
And his was not cheap either last night. The ball he hit to left center.
Which brings up the thought of a dream matchup when the A's get back home in the weekend series with the Giants.
Yeah, that's right. Let's hope it happens. That'd be nice.
That would be Mr. Zito and Mr. Hudson.
You know, all 3 games, I mean, I know Saturday and Sunday very close, if not sold out, and they were going to be anyway, but this would really make it that much more interesting if both could pitch that Saturday game. We know Hudson's scheduled to pitch that day, and he's determined to do that. It'd be great for Zito.
Here's J.B. Shuck taking high 1-0. It's not out of the question. Now, as Bob Melvin said, a lot would have to happen between now and then. With Zito getting stretched out, after all, he's pitched just 1 inning since the 5th of August. And the pitch by Nolan is outside. It's 2-0 to J.B. Shuck. 1 out, bottom of the second, no score. But Barry is available. We might see him today out of the A's bullpen. And the pitch outside. And 3-1 to J.B. Shuck.
It's not like Barry has ever thrown 100. You know, I mean, Barry is more finesse, great curveball and changeup, and he said the timing seemed to be okay.
3-0 pitch, just taking a strike on the outside corner. Threw on the side yesterday. Said he felt great. He's always been in great shape.
Yeah.
And he's watching the action from down in the A's bullpen today. He was in the dugout last night. 3-1 to Shuck, and Shuck gets a ground ball to the right side, taken at second by Laurie. Now backtracking, getting back to first as Canna takes the throw for the second out.
I know on the TV side we had several shots of Zito in the dugout, and the great thing about that was seeing how the players were congregating around him as he was almost like he was holding court. Everything he said they wanted to be a part of and listen to what he said. But it's a great story, and I thought what he said, he's in awe of being here. How about that? 14 years, very accomplished, Cy Young Award, yet coming back to the big leagues and sitting in the dugout in awe of Major League Baseball once again after all these years.
Here's the pitch, and taken by Flowers, a strike on the outside corner. 2 out, bottom of the second, no score. Well, Vince and I were in the dugout when Zito came back from the bullpen after his side. And he looked around the ballpark, he looked up and he said, man, there's a third deck here.
Yeah, that's right.
Low for a ball. That's what spending the whole year in the minor leagues will do.
And there's not a guitar on the scoreboard.
That's right.
Like in Nashville.
1 ball, 1 strike.
Well, he took a year off and then spent the year in Nashville, so you're right. All things are new for him again.
Here's the 1-1 pitch, and a line drive base hit left field. A solid single to left by Tyler Flowers, and the White Sox have their second hit, and that'll bring up Saladino. Got a pitch toward the inner half around the belt. And if you look at Barry and the greatest White Sox of all time, Frank Thomas, recent inductee into baseball's Hall of Fame a couple years ago, and they'll always be linked, I think, Ray, in A's lore for what they did in Game 1 at the Metrodome in the 2006 American League Division Series.
Santana gave it up to Frank, and of course Zito was the Santana. I think the
Santana and Zito, the pitching matchup, and Zito went 8. Big Hurt hit 2 home runs. Houston Street got the save. Here's a quick throw to first, not in time.
That was a series where, as you were heading toward the postseason, if you were a team that was going to face the Twins, you didn't want to face the Twins.
Exactly.
Their ballpark, Johan Santana having a very good year, and the same with Detroit against the Yankees. As it turns out, those 2 teams won, the A's and the Tigers, to meet in the ALCS.
The Herd, of course, one of the many statues on display here.
Is yours here?
Yeah, right. Maybe in the dining room. The pitch to Saladino is taken low, and it's 1-0. 2 out, bottom of the second, no score.
Got the Hawk here. Hawk broadcast level. Hawk Carlson.
That's right.
Yeah.
They named the broadcast area for the Hawk. Saladino takes a changeup low, and it's 2-0. We're in the bottom of the second, final game of the series. And the A's and White Sox, no score. 2-0 to Tyler Saladino. Nolan out of the stretch, third base side of the rubber. Flowers at first. Here's the pitch, swung on, bounce to the hole at short. To his right, Simeon goes to second in time, and a good stretch over there by Brett Laurie, and the inning is over. And after 2 complete in Chicago on the south side, the A's and the White Sox, no score. 2015 season with your own team photo presented by YP.com. On Tuesday, when the A's meet the Rangers at 7:05, 10,000 fans will go home with the A's team photo. And again, presented by YP.com. For information and for tickets, you can go to athletics.com/tickets. After 2 on a warm and windy day in Chicago, we go to the third. No score. And here's Vince.
Josh Phegley back up there. He was at the plate when Josh Reddick was supposed to be out on a ground ball. That was an E3. Supposed to be out at second. They didn't throw, and then finally was out at third base on the wild pitch thrown to third base. And the delivery down low to Phegley starts off the third, and ball 1 to him. Quintana's last 5 starts unbeaten with an ERA just over 3, a 3-0 mark. As he comes back to the plate, and a changeup, a good one, a wave and a miss with Phegley out in front. 1-1 the count. Who has the advantage, Ray? The catcher that caught the pitcher, or the pitcher that knows the catcher? Because these guys were together for the last couple of years. Here comes the 1-1 pitch. Swung on, line into left center field. On the run, Cabrera, he can't get it. It's Phegley 1 and Quintana nothing as he turns. It's on his way to second and stands in with a double.
I don't know that you can look that much into it, although I'll take the fact right there that Phegley hit a great one. But, man, Cabrera can't play some outfield. He's been horrible in this series.
Very slow.
I mean, he reacted horribly on that ball that was in the left center. It looked like it's going to be an easy double, but just the way he went after it, a couple that Samardzija threw a couple of nights ago that just couldn't handle. But sometimes if you wait, if you know the guy has a good changeup, if you wait and he's not overpowering with his fastball, that can help a hitter.
16 doubles now for Phegley. And here comes Smolinski. He swings at the first pitch, attacks it, and fouls it back to the right for strike 1. Pride of Rockford, Illinois. Smolinski batting just 182, but his 5th home run last night. That was in the 9th inning against Scott Carroll, and 21 RBIs.
Didn't mean a lot last night, but it's good to see Billy Butler hit the ball to the right side. The A's score a run basically without a hit early in the game when it was a gift run with a runner in third and 1 out.
Here's the 1 strike pitch. Swung on, pulled to third, and speared by Saladino. Nice play toward the line. That ball was hit well by Smolinski and could have been a double, but Saladino with quick reactions to his right. Smolinski, he can barrel up a pitch or two.
And there are times a pitcher is going to force a hitter to not hit the ball to the opposite side, opposite field, to be able to advance a runner, hit the ball on the right side. But sometimes you have to stay inside, wait a long time, and try to get the job done. And I think that's where the evaluating in September, a club that's out of it, see what the hitters will do in these certain situations.
Now another Chicagoland native, Tyler Ladendorf, standing in. He swings and sends one to deep left. Cabrera's back. He's going to have a play in front of the track, and he'll make the catch. So Ladendorf, first ball swinging, sends one to deep left, but Phegley can't advance.
Sack fly. Sack fly, runner at second. All the more important is to get him over, and that's it. Makes it so easy in this part of the game to be able to get a run if you have a leadoff double.
Now Semien struck out looking on an inside fastball to start the game. No score here in the third. 2 outs. Phegley still at second base. A good lead as Quintana stretches and delivers, and he offers a breaking ball, missing outside and low. Ball 1. Marcus with 3 hits in the series, including a long opposite field home run, and that was a couple of nights ago in the 17-run uprising. The 1-0 pitch. Swung on, blooped into right field. That's a base hit. Garcia charging. Gloves. Here comes Phegley. Here comes a throw by Garcia. It's offline. In standing is Phegley, and the A's take a 1-0 lead. And on the throw home, advancing to second is Marcus Semien. And RBI is 39th of the year, and the A's strike first in Chicago.
And that's how you do it. Marcus Semien inside out. And you guys had mentioned about the hit and run that he had in Texas, hitting the ball behind first and third, and he's done it with the home run and now another base hit. It really goes back to in Arizona when he got the game winner against Brad Ziegler going to right field, and he does that, he's going to drive in a lot of runs.
A's get a break. Garcia, who leads the league in assists with 16, and with 2 outs and an average runner, Ron Washington was going to make him make the throw, and the A's get their first run.
The heads up part was Semien going to second with the throw missing everybody.
Now Canna bats. He takes low, ball 1. So at least an early birthday celebration for Simeon. See if he can hold up for the A's, and they attempt to add on Quintana. Canna with a 5-game hitting streak. Ron Washington just picking up where he left off so many years ago as a third base coach. A great read on the play and aggressive, certainly. Here's the 1-0. A breaking ball catches the inside corner. 1 ball and 1 strike. Fegley has to help. He had a good lead and got a great break on the ball as well.
And as a third base coach, you know the arm strength of the outfield, plus how was the ball hit. And I think all those things factoring in, the ball was not hit that hard. If it's more of a line drive, he has to hold Fegley, but was not hit hard, and you forced him to make a good throw, and he didn't do it.
The 1-1 pitch. Swung on and hit towards short. Flag down on a hop by Ramirez to his left. Spins and throws the first and gets Canna to end the inning. The A's with some well-hit balls in the third against Quintana. They get 1 on a couple of hits. And we head to the bottom of the third for the Athletics. Josh Fegley helping his battery mate. And the A's are in front 1-0. It's an early 1-0 lead as we start the bottom of the third, and Sean Nolan deals down and away ball 1 as Micah Johnson shortens the bunts and pulls back with ball 1. Johnson popped up in foul territory to Danny Valencia back in the first inning. Nolan on the third base side of the hill, the turn and the pitch, and he misses high. Ball 2. 2 balls and no strikes. The reality is Nolan just hasn't logged a lot of innings. 47 innings in the minor leagues this year, coming back from the core surgery and the shoulder issues. And the next delivery is on the outside corner, a strike. That makes it 2-1.
That's why it was important for him to get to 96 pitches in his last start, as he gets close to full strength.
And the lefty fires, and it's up and in. Ricochets off the bat of Johnson. Try to get out of the way, and that makes it 2 balls and 2 strikes. I do think that the A's sense that while this is an important chance for Nolan, that he really is still building some strength and probably has more. And once an off-season strengthening program continues, it'll be a better spring for him. A curve freezes Johnson right at the belt, and he is gone a-looking. So Johnson down on strikes. It's the first K for Nolan, who's finally starting to get a better feel for that curveball.
Well, a curve after a fastball that actually hit 90. The one that was fouled back came right back with another curve. And we talked about last start in Texas how trying to create more of a spin to get a better curveball breaking, which did not do in Oakland against the Mariners.
Just getting a better feel literally for the Major League Baseball.
Yeah, right. How about that? Still can't imagine them being different.
Here's Alexi Ramirez. He takes outside, a changeup, ball 1. A's leading 1-0 here in the third. Ramirez, a ground ball base hit up the middle. And the pitch. He shows bunts. He takes a change over the inside corner. Oh, and a scoreless inning pitching, by the way, too. That's probably what he would rather lead with. We talked about this earlier today. He really opened some eyes. Apparently he's got a knuckleball as well that he didn't break out. 1-1 pitch downstairs, ball 2.
Is it Garcia's making a second appearance this year? Lori Garcia? Because it was first for
his second in his career.
Okay, because I know Adam Roden. I said, "Do you have anything on him?" He said, "Actually, I did because he had pitched before."
Here's the 2-1. Bounce weakly toward the mound. Coming off is Nolan. Third base side. Turns and throws to first. And Ramirez is the second out.
As you know, Ray, it was the second time the White Sox had 2 position players pitch in the same game.
How did they look in 1902 when the other 2 did it?
1902. And one of the guys was a native of San Francisco.
I still like the one that in '79 when I was part of the Brewers, and Sal Bando pitched 3, Jim Gantner 1, Buck Martinez 1.
5 innings in
one game.
Because
he get beat about 18-2.
Pitch a curve on the outside corner, a strike to Cabrera. It's 0-1. Ramirez, as we saw with the Comcast folks, how he went through the A's lineup in that 9th inning. A changeup is low, and it's 1 ball and 1 strike. And everybody was impressed with the velocity and the variety of pitches that Ramirez had. Here's the 1-1 pitch. It is low, ball 2. 2 balls and a strike.
He looked like a pitcher out there.
Yeah, he's shaking off the catcher, so you know he's looking like a good pitcher.
Having a good time. Big smile on his face. Here's the 2-1. Big curve. That one stays high. 3 balls and a strike.
I thought the good part about Ramirez pitching, he had dirt on his uniform from diving at shortstop, and you don't see many pitchers that have completely dirty uniforms.
3-1 pitch. It is over at the knees, and Cabrera takes the strike to fill the count at 3-2. He kept the A's off the board because of some good defense behind him. Remember, Saladino went to shortstop when he went to pitch, and he made a great play. 3-2 hit on the ground on the right side and right at Laurie. Second baseman has it on the first. A nice shutdown inning for Sean Nolan after the A's gave him an early lead. So 3 of the books on the south side, and the A's are in front 1-0. ...2016 spring training trip now, as home dates for the games at Hohokam Park have been announced. Enjoy a first-class experience and get an early glimpse of next year's squad at the all-new spring training venue in Mesa. Go to athletics.com/spring today. Should be a lot of fun. It'll be here before you know it. As we conclude this season, Brett Lawrie takes outside, ball 1. Both Ray and I have seen the new digs. Our partner, Mr. Korak, has yet to see what's been happening down there in Mesa. 1-0 pitch is swung on, foul back.
Beautiful place. Both the minor league complex and, of course, the major league field. It's beautiful.
Brett Lawrie struck out his first time up. A bright day on the south side. Occasionally the passing clouds have provided a bit of a respite with some with a chance to get away from the glare. Here's the 1-1 with some cloud cover, a swing and a foul off to the right, and that's going to get into the upper deck.
You know, when the A's were in Arizona playing the Diamondbacks, good to see Ted Polakowski, who was really very instrumental in putting the complex together, both of them, and very proud to look at the facility that the A's are going to be there for a long time. And considering it was Rendezvous Park back in the early 70s when the A's were training in Mesa, and now to see the beautiful place that they will be able to train for many, many years, it's like a major league facility.
And the 1-2. It is low with a breaking ball, the pitch that Lawrie chased back in the first inning.
It'll still be there next spring, though, Ken, when you're there.
I was just thinking about the fact that you'll be working on your pregame show for that, the first radio broadcast on the 5th of March. The A's against the Brewers.
2-2. Swung on, foul back.
The A's always open with the Brewers. It's not their official opener, but I think that will mark the first broadcast.
And usually it's a charity game that's played either in Maryvale or what was Phoenix Muni, but now Hohokam.
Saladino deep at third base. Here's another 2-2. Swung on line towards second and off the glove of the second baseman and into right field. Right center fielder from Micah Johnson's leather, as that pitch was absolutely smoked that time.
Don't look at it, Rosie. Just say base hit. Repeat.
The A's have really made some hard contact today against Quintana.
Base hit.
He's watching the replay, Ray.
I know he is.
I guess I just automatically put it up there. He felt like it spoke for itself. And now Robin Ventura wants to visit briefly with the home plate umpire DJ Rayburn. I'd like to know what this might be about. And now they're going to bring in Joe West, the crew chief. And,
hurry up, Joe.
And he'll amble in from his position at first base.
Nobody's hitting out of turn, are they?
No.
The home plate umpire looked in the A's dugout, or maybe to their MLB as far as the telephones, and he kind of gave a no, with the under his neck. What happened?
So now Joe West, after conferring with the umpires, is going to now talk with Robin Ventura, and quite frankly, we just don't know what it's about, but Joe is pointing back toward home plate, and I guess we'll get some kind of clarification.
Maybe Johnson lost it because of something happening behind home plate. Maybe he lost the ball as it was approaching him, and I don't know. I mean, you can't tell people to put on dark shirts.
Yeah, take off your white T-shirt.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
Because Brett Lawrie missed it the other night in the 14th-inning game when ball was hit off the end of the bat by Soto, and he said, I didn't see it, and it wasn't anything other. Lawrie said it was like a huge flash, like a flash bulb, and he lost it completely.
Melvin conferred with the umpires as well, so we will now get back to play on the field.
Maybe the skipper said, what's going on, Joe?
He's leading 1-0 for Valencia. Swung at the first pitch and bounced to third his first time up. So Quintana back to the stretch. A's with 3 hits. And the lefty goes back over to first base. And Lawrie barely off the bag. Another breezy day here on the south side. They're expecting cooler temperatures to invade the greater Chicagoland area over the weekend. Here comes the pitch, and Valencia goes after it, fouls it back, strike one. The A's have been aggressive early in the count today against Quintana. Breaking news, a base hit.
It's a good call, Rosie.
For Brett Lawrie.
Repeat.
Can you repeat that, please? Here's the 0-1. Swung on, hit high and deep to center. On the run is Shuck to the track. track, and he's got some room right on the track at the base of the wall in deep left center. As Valencia making a bid for his 15th home run, just a bit shy. 1 out now in the inning.
You know, from a pitching standpoint, and this is a pretty big yard, left center, right center, although some balls traveled to left center last night. But if you can force, in this case, left-handed pitcher, right-handed hitter, force him to try to pull the ball, keeping the ball away to where he hits it, tries to hit it out the left center, you're going to save yourself a lot of home runs if you're able to pull the ball because it's left inside off the plate or in the middle of the plate, and you go the shorter distance. And that ball just did not have enough. Maybe the wind knocked it down a little bit.
Danny's been so productive since joining the A's, almost an RBI per game. 28 RBIs in 31 games. And just missed expanding the A's 1-0 lead as Billy Butler stands in. Billy, a fly ball to deep right his first time up. Quintana's pitch, off speed, little breaking ball, drops in for a strike.
And not surprising, first pitch off speed with, as you mentioned, the hitters jumping on early pitches from Quintana.
Butler 4 for 16 of the series. He's had 28 lifetime at bats against Quintana from his days in the American League Central with the Royals. He swings and bounces one over the mound near second base, picked up by Ramirez, reaches back and dives to the second base bag with the glove, and he beats Laurie there for the out. Butler safe at first on a fielder's choice, but what an effort by Ramirez, who went to the other side of second base and then somehow stopped his momentum and dove back toward the bag and just beat Brett there.
Okay, he could play some shortstop. He could pitch, but that strong arm that he uses at shortstop, and to see the aggressiveness just diving for the bag, it was pretty impressive.
You know, they've got an option on Ramirez for next year, and I don't know. I mean, having that veteran out there, what we've seen, I know the offensive numbers are down a little bit, but he can still pick it with the best of them at shortstop. Now Reddick stands in, and a curve in there for a strike, and something has been happening on the positive side for Reddick, and that is he continues to start against left-handers. Of the last 10 lefties the A's have faced, Reddick has started in 8 of those games, including the likes of Clayton Kershaw and Scott Kazmir. Now today, Jose Quintana. Fastball launched toward right. Over toward right center goes Garcia. Back on the track he goes. He'll make the catch, and the A's pushing outfielders back but staying in the ballpark. And couldn't get a run. Ramirez helping out with his athletic play as we head to the bottom of the 4th inning. It's 1-0 Oakland. The south side of Chicago. And Sean Nolan ready to go.
Got your run.
As he faces Avisail Garcia, Giovanni Soto, and Mike Olt. He's allowed 2 hits so far over the 3 innings. Garcia popped up to the shortstop his first time up. And the first offering in the inning is swung on and hit on the ground past third base, out of play for strike one.
You know, one of the good things about Sean Nolan, as he did with Ramirez, I think it was when he threw the fastball at 90, just to show the White Sox that he could reach 90, because everything else has been in the mid 80s, maybe a little bit upper in the 80s, but nothing really overpowering.
0-1 pitch is pulled again to the end of the White Sox dugout on the third base side, and it's 0-2.
You always get concerned second time through the batting order, and while he retired the first three last inning, you start wondering if the hitters will say don't look for too much, kind of stay back a little bit more, but Garcia out in front of a couple of pitches here.
0-2 offer. Fastball, and it sailed up and away at 89. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Well, we saw Trace Thompson make an acrobatic attempt on a ball, which turned out to be the beginning of a 4-run rally for the A's on Monday night. He's had a bit of a elbow issue, sprained elbow, as Garcia fouls back another pitch. It stays at 1 ball and 2 strikes, but it was reminiscent of what happened to Garcia because of the awful shoulder injury he had diving for a ball last year. Missed a lot of time coming over from the Tigers. It's from Venezuela. And the 1-2. Swing and a miss, up and away. Good four-seamer. And Garcia chases, and down he goes. 2 Ks for Nolan. And we'll pause 10 seconds. Station identification on the A's radio network. On a Thursday with Ken Korak and Ray Fosse, Vince Cotroneo with you. A's leading 1-0. And a slow breaking ball drops in on Soto for strike one. Giovanni, a fly ball to right his first time up. And the pitch swung on and foul back. He ended up letting go of the bat and held on with just one hand as he fouled it back to the screen. I don't know if you saw the highlight last night on what was an otherwise difficult night for the Astros, being drubbed by the Rangers 14-3. Evan Gattis one-handed or one-armed a ball out to left field at Globe Life Park last night. One of the few bright spots, maybe the only bright spot for Houston last night. Here comes the 0-2. Stays outside with a breaking ball. And 1 ball and 2 strikes.
Maybe Mike Napoli could tell him that he broke his bat in half. Hit a ball in spring training as a member of the Red Sox this past spring. So some pretty powerful hitters. One-handed, broken bat, still leave the yard.
1-2. Fastball on the outside corner, perfectly placed. Soto knows it. He's down on strikes. Back-to-back Ks for Nolan. He's retired 7 in a row, and here comes Mike Oltz.
I'd like to see a picture of Giovanni Soto when he was a rookie or the year after, when he weighed about 260 pounds. Because he's down to a mere shadow right now.
Even from last year, Ray. He's lost weight since he was with the A's a year ago.
I think he said 25 pounds, but
former National League Rookie of the Year. And a slow curve comes into Olt and bounced up short for ball 1. The out-of-town scoreboard brought to you by the beautiful Waterfront Hotel in Oakland's Jack London Square. Visit www.waterfronthoteloakland, waterfronthoteloakland.com, and enter the promo code baseball to save on your next stay. As Nolan stays soft on Olt, and he pulls it outside of third base, a foul ball to even the count at 1 ball and 1 strike. Only one game going on. It's in Pittsburgh, back and forth, the Cubs and the Pirates. And the Cubs in the top of the 8th inning lead Pittsburgh 9-6. Next pitch, soft again outside. 2 balls and a strike.
Cubs and Cardinals over the weekend.
Where?
Wrigley Field.
Oh.
Pirates will be in
Wrigley
LA
Field
against the Dodgers. 2-1, swung on, fouled back. 2 balls and 2 strikes. Ray, can a pitcher, and we're seeing a lot of it, Nolan is almost pitching backwards all day today.
Yeah.
So, I mean, a lot of soft and occasionally coming in with the fastball.
And that's why changing up a little bit, a few more fastballs, although topping out at 89. But the 2 strikeouts have come on the 89 mile an hour fastball.
2-2 pitch. Is it high and deep to left? Olt knows he hit it well, and he just hit it out. All the way back behind the seats in left field. His 2nd home run in as many nights. A no-doubter. And he ties the game at 1. Chance to shoot off the fireworks with the exploding scoreboard here on the south side. And man, did he crush that pitch from Sean Nolan.
Notice this time he dropped down a little sidearm and a little different angle in which he let the ball go. He did that in Texas to the left-handers. hard to do against right-handers, and it allows them to see the ball a little bit better. And I think Oates saw that quite well as it was crushed.
Almost like a cut right into his barrel. Now J.B. Shuck. And first pitch, breaking ball strike. It's 0-1.
And Nolan, you could see the expression on his face as soon as he let go of the ball. He was thinking, oh no, this is not going to be good.
Well, his over-the-top delivery with the changeup is outstanding.
0-1 high, 1 ball and 1 strike. I could see Nolan wanting to maybe use that different look. There's 2 outs. There's nobody on base. He's got 2 strikes on the batter, but he's also got a batter up there that does have some power, and that's the flip side of that opportunity. As he delivers to the outer half, a swing and a miss by Shuck, and it's 1-2.
If you change your angle of your delivery where a hitter can see the ball better, it's kind of productive from a pitcher standpoint. And even though the different look, but maybe more so to a lefty, like what Shuck just did, swung at a pitch way out in the strike zone, you can drop down a little bit more to him.
1-2 offer outside again. Curveball missing. Ball 2. 2 balls and 2 strikes.
He gave up a home run to Napoli in his last start in Arlington. That was the curveball, and settled down. That was all he gave up. But if that's it, that's a good outing.
And the 2-2. Fastball popped up and back to our left. You can see the wrappers now blowing on the field. You can certainly notice the wind whipping through the uniforms of both teams on the field. A constant breeze here on the south side. J.B. Shuck, a part-time player here for the Pale Hose. Adam Eaton not starting today, nor is Jose Abreu. It is the Windy City, you know. Here's the 2-2. Swung on line, back up the middle, and that one almost got the second baseman, Rob Drake. He followed it all the way to the last moment, then he turned his face rather smartly out of the way, and Shuck is aboard with another 2-out hit. And that'll bring Tyler Flowers to the plate. Off the end of the bat, but back up the middle, and Rob Drake showing some umpire acrobatics. He kind of pounded his heart like, whoo, that was close.
Almost knuckled right into it.
Now Flowers, the right-hand batter. He swings and sends one deep to left. But a play out there for Kenna, and Mark is there to make the catch, or make that Smolinski. Jake Smolinski's there to make the catch, and the inning is over. But Sean Nolan surrenders a game-tying home run, sends us to the 5th. Oakland 1, Chicago 1. For a 1-1 and on to the 5th. Here's Ken.
And it's Fegley leading it off for the Athletics. Fegley, Smolinski, and Leidendorf against the left-hander Jose Quintana. We'd love to see him when the A's get back home. The final homestand begins on Tuesday night. The A's against the Rangers at 7:05. 3 against Texas and 3 against the San Francisco Giants. And here's Fegley, who doubled in his first at bat back in the 3rd. Checks in batting at .252. Jose Quintana into his 5th inning. And this will be pitch number 50 for the left-hander. He is ready, comes to the plate, and it's on the way. And it's swung on and popped up foul, right side back out of play. The A's will fly to Houston after the game. 3-game series against the Astros beginning tomorrow night.
Now, you were talking about the debut of Marcus Semien and Eric Johnson in New York. What Mark was talking about 2013. Fegley also caught in that game. So
September 4th of 2013.
Fegley was a catcher and Semien at third. Eric Johnson pitching.
Here's the 0-1 delivery now to Fegley, and it's swung on a fly ball left field. Playable for Melky Cabrera, ambling toward the line. He's there, 1 away. What a thrill for those guys. And if you can imagine being college roommates and now you make your big league debut together at Yankee Stadium, that's storybook stuff.
Yeah. Did anybody ever find out what happened last night after Semien hit fly ball to right field, and then Trainer and Robin Ventura went out to Eric Johnson? He stayed in the game, pitched 6 innings, but I don't know if there was anything ever said what happened, but couldn't see anything that happened.
Here's Smolinski, a right-handed hitter, and Quintana delivers a strike on the outside corner, 0-1.
Maybe Ventura has an appearance clause in his contract that he has to go on the field X number of times a game.
That could be.
Yeah. He went out today, and we can't figure out why.
Here's the 0-1 delivery now in a 1-1 tie, taken low, and it's 1-1. Well, Johnson allowed just 1 run through the first 5, and then Billy Butler got him for a 2-run home run in the 6th inning yesterday, and Johnson left after 6, got the win. He bested Cody Martin, and now Jose Quintana with 1 out in the 5th. And the pitch to Smolinski, and Jake takes just outside, 2-1. Tyler Ladendorf is on deck. Smolinski going deep, Ray, against Scott Carroll in the 9th inning last night.
Been impressive against lefties and righties.
Here's the 2-1 pitch, and that's taken inside for ball. He has 5 home runs for the year. 4 of those have come with the A's.
And 2-1 game against the Twins when he joined the ball club.
He's had a lot of friends and family here at the ballpark for the series from Rockford, Illinois. And now the 3-1 pitch by Jose Quintana is taken inside. The A's have a start here in the 5th as Smolinski walks. The first walk allowed by Quintana, and that'll bring up Ladendorf. It's kind of a tie in a way. You look at Quintana being from Colombia. We mentioned just 13 major league players have come from that country. One of them, Orlando Cabrera, who played shortstop for both these clubs.
And for the A's and for many other clubs.
And it was Cabrera who was dealt by the A's to the Twins for Tyler Ladendorf. And the pitch to Tyler, and that's a strike on the outside corner, 0-1. Orlando could play.
It's a very good shortstop. Gold Glove, wasn't he? Gold Glove winner. Clutch hitter. Love your stogies.
So here's Quintana out of the stretch. And a move to first, not in time. We're in the top of the 5th on this Thursday afternoon. The A's and the White Sox tied up at 1-1. Ladendorf grew up actually right near where the A's will be later today, near the airport, near Midway. And he was a huge White Sox fan as a kid. Here's the 0-1 pitch, and that's taken outside. A fastball missing, 1 ball, 1 strike. Now, he was born in '88. But he said, Ladendorf said, that he developed his love of baseball when he began to follow the game when the White Sox had their really good clubs in the early and mid 90s. So the guys like Frank Thomas and Robin Ventura had a huge influence on Ladendorf. Go to first, not in time.
Tony La Russa. Tony was still, he may have, but the back end of the.
No, Tony was
before 83.
joined the A's,
right.
in the 80s.
That's right. He was 83. I was just thinking the championship that he was part of.
Here's the 1-1 pitch with 1 out. And swung on a fly ball left field. Cabrera has a beat on it. He's there and he makes the catch. That was weird. It was almost like Flowers moved to his right expecting a pitch out. 2 away as Ladendorf flies out.
Well, you know, Bob Melvin won't ask an umpire, was that a pitch out? Because he asked that to Hunter Wintelstead and got ejected. And all he simply did against the Blue Jays and Russell Martin was say, was that a pitch out? You say it again and I'll throw you out.
Yeah.
So he asked him and he ejected him.
Well, when Ladendorf was 5, Ray, in '93, the White Sox went to the postseason.
Right.
And lost to Toronto. And Gene Lamont was their manager that year.
Former catcher.
Yep.
65 draft.
So to first, not in time, along with Ray Fosse.
We were both drafted ahead of Johnny Bench. How about that? It's all right. We're still in the big leagues.
Well, you had a shot. You had a shot to be the American League Johnny Bench. So 5th inning, and the pitch to Simeon on the way, and that's taken low and outside, and the count 1-0. 1-1, the A's and the White Sox. 2 out. The A's have Smolinski at first. Quintana is signed to a long-term deal here. They really think he's a centerpiece player for them. He's signed through 2018, and then options for 19 and 20. Here's a move to first. Man, it is really blowing.
Well,
I mean, the wind is howling.
And look at down on the stands, and people are losing things. You know, it's blowing so hard. I mean, I'm not talking about paper. It looks like some purses flying around. So it must really been blowing hard.
So the 1-0 delivery, and it's taken a strike on the outside corner, and the count 1-1. It's kind of, it almost feels like a Hawaii kind of a day.
Almost feels like rain's coming in, right?
Yeah, well, they were talking about that for later, but it's humid, it's warm, it's really windy. 1 ball, 1 strike. Here's the 1-1 pitch by Quintana, and it swung on a miss. It's not that oppressive kind of heat and humidity in the Midwest where you feel like you can't get a breath of air because there's no wind off times.
Yeah. That's the southern part of Illinois where the humidity is very, very high.
Down around Marion?
Been there, done that. Yeah, it's really hot. Impressive.
Here's the 1-2 pitch. Instead of throw to first, not in time. The A's and the Astros tomorrow night. The marquee matchup over the weekend series will be on Saturday, the rematch between Sonny Gray and Scott Kazmir. Tomorrow night, Felix Dubront and Mike Fiers. Here's the 1-2 high 2-2. Mike Fiers of no-hit fame this year. No-hit the Dodgers, right?
Yes, he did.
And then Sunday, 11:10 Pacific time for Aaron Brooks against Colin McHugh.
Yeah, the A's faced back-to-back no-hitters this year, and Fiers and Iwakuma.
And in the dirt, a breaking ball missing, and the count 3-2. The A's are off on Monday. Then the A's against the Rangers on Tuesday night. Iwakuma beat the Angels last night for Seattle with the first 6 innings. That Cubs-Pittsburgh game in the bottom of the 8th inning, the Cubs are leading 9-6. Here's the 3-2 delivery, and swung on, hit to left field, going back. Cabrera nearing the track, base of the track, midway on the track, and he makes the catch. 3 fly balls to left and a walk. The A's failed to score. And halfway through our ball game today, after 4.5, is the A's and the White Sox in a 1-1 tie. And once again, 2016 ticket plans are on sale now. You can get on board early with 2016 priority seating and choose your exact seating location for next season. They offer a variety of full and partial season plans that qualify for great benefits, including half-price parking, a flexible ticket exchange program, and more. And for more information, you can call 510-638-GO-A's, or you can visit athletics.com/2016. And the A's will open up the 16 campaign against the Chicago White Sox with a 4-game series.
And the A's have missed Chris Sale, but they won't miss him opening night, assuming he's healthy.
Well, you'd assume it would be Sonny Gray against Chris Sale.
Right.
That's April 4th. So as we go to the bottom of the 5th.
Fegler was took a long time to come out from the dugout. And in fact, John Nolan made a couple of tosses to him, but I don't know if he had some equipment issues or just the fact that he is on and took us some extra time.
Well, he settles in back behind the plate. The A's have 3 hits. The White Sox have 4. And Tyler Saladino leads it off for Chicago. Their number 9 hitter. And he take a strike on the inside corner from Nolan. Do you see any? I'm not trying to say that Sean Nolan is the next Barry Zito, but left-handed, has that full windup. Fastball, curve, change, mix, an occasional cutter. Pitch inside for a ball, 1 ball, 1 strike. Do you see some similarities, Ray?
A lot, especially velocity. And I don't know, Sean Nolan a little bit younger than Barry Zito, and Barry's velocity declined over years.
The 1-1 pitch is a check swing and a foul ball, 1-2.
And one of the biggest things for Barry was having the differential between his fastball and changeup as his fastball velocity did decline, and he was able to do that. And it's important for Sean Nolan, and we'll see, as you guys have mentioned, over time, if he gets the strength and endurance and everything and starts throwing a better fastball.
Here's the 2-1 delivery, swung on line to first, right to Canna, out number 1. A well hit ball right to the A's first baseman. So Canna takes care of Saladino. Well, I don't know. It's hard to quantify something like this, of course. But to me, if watching Nolan pitch, he looks like a big league pitcher.
Exactly, but
he looks like he knows what he's doing out there.
But if you can't blow hitters away with a 95-plus fastball, you better be able to pitch, and pitch is the key, and Sean Nolan can do that.
Here's Micah Johnson, a left-handed hitter, outside 1-0.
At least he's shown he's been able to do that, and it's something Barry Zito has done throughout his career.
Well, it's at a point where the A's really need it. Here's the 1-0 pitch, and off speed taken low, 2-0. The A's last 33 games, their starting pitchers have just 6 wins.
Yeah.
Have to get to the finish line, 2.5 weeks away. Try to get deeper into games. Here's the 2-0 by Nolan, and swung on, popped up foul out of play off a fastball.
You go back to the last 5 starts, and Sean Nolan, of the 5 starting pitchers, gave up 1 run in Texas. Everybody else since then, the 4, 5, 6, and 7 runs per outing with very short outings, and that takes care of your bullpen, and it also doesn't do a very good job with the ERA.
That's a big reason Mr. Zito is here. Here's a swing and a miss, and it's 2-2. Well, the A's starters last 33 games a 6.26 ERA, but you look at Kazmir traded, Bassett's hurt, Graveman's hurt, Jesse Chavez hurt, Jesse Hahn hurt. 2-2 pitch is foul back. They hope to get Bassett back, and Bob Melvin said before the game, and Bassett threw again on the side before the game. They're going to try to stretch him out down in Houston and almost simulate a couple innings, 2 or 3 innings in the bullpen, ups and downs, as they say, where he'll pitch, make a few pitches, then sit down as if his team was batting, and possible that he could make a couple of starts before we reach the finish line. Breaking ball in the dirt, and 3-2 to Micah Johnson.
And they'll ask you to grab a bat. Go out and hit against him as he has his ups and downs.
Well,
catch him on his downs.
Yeah, I could stand there, Ray.
Well, when Pedro Martinez did that, he needed a mannequin because he always hit the guys who stood in there. So you have to be careful.
Right. Here's the 3-2 on the way, and that's taken just inside, missed with a fastball. Johnson walks, 1 out. That'll bring up Alexi Ramirez. Every time the A's turn a double play this season, the Men's Warehouse will donate $100 to Year Up. Right now, find great deals on designer brands, including Joseph Abboud, Calvin Klein, and Kenneth Cole. To find a store or to shop online, visit menswarehouse.com. Ray, the baseball world saddened today the loss of one of the giants in our profession at the age of 88, Milo Hamilton. Long-time Major League voice passing away. Throw to first, not in time. Several teams in the big leagues for basically a half century in Major League Baseball. They called a balk on Sean Nolan.
And they're trying to ask why. It looked like he made a complete angle with his angle to throw to first base, and a little surprising that it was called. It had to be called by Joe West, but it had to be the front foot if it went down too much towards the plate. Actually, interesting. Brett Laurie was going over to talk to Joe West. Joe West says, "Get back."
And Melvin came out and had a couple things to say to the plate umpire Rayburn.
Well, you can't argue, but you can get an explanation, and it had to be the angle in which he threw to first base. That's the only thing it could have been. And
did you see anything?
No,
I didn't.
No, I thought he made an exaggerated throw to first with, at least with a leg lift. And just looking at that, Joe called it. That's a bad call.
How many lefties have done that like 1,000 times or more?
And never been called. Well, Joe had a bad night umpiring at home plate. Starts a series calling out hitters on check swings it shouldn't have been. But
here's Ramirez, and the pitch is a curve high. Excuse me, Bill, but I talked to Joe West before the game today.
Good. How's he doing?
Well, I said, Joe, 5 hours and 8 minutes on Monday night. What's the deal? You're back behind the plate. He said, that was bad scheduling on my part. He's the crew chief. 1-0 pitch is inside. 2 balls and no strikes to Alexi Ramirez. Been around a long time. Country Joe West.
So you're saying that since you talked to him, that didn't mean that he had a bad game? I thought, he made too many calls on check swings as a home plate umpire. They could have been deferring to the first and third base.
I didn't call him out on that, no. And the pitch taken for a strike on the outside corner. 2 balls and 1 strike.
And he was not correct. That's the only thing, because it's hard to see that. And I'm always appreciative of home plate umpires that admittedly, if there's a check swing, let the other guys on the corner. Let them make the calls.
2-1 to Alexi Ramirez. 1-1 tie, 1 out, bottom of the 5th in Chicago. Alexi takes inside. Now the count 3-1. Well,
but therein lies the rub, though, because some home plate umpires say this is my home plate.
But still,
I agree with you 100%. But I'm saying that's their mindset. Sometimes they don't want to give up that area.
Hitters always feel a lot better about the call if they ask for help.
Exactly, and that's why you see Adrian Beltre, now Mike Trout's doing it. They immediately check swing. They'll point to the first base umpire, trying to put it on him to make the call.
Reduces the tension, for sure.
3 balls and 1 strike to Ramirez. Nolan at the belt, and now the pitch, and floats an off-speed pitch up and in. Now the White Sox have 2 on and 1 out. So Nolan walked a couple of batters here, and that'll bring out Melky Cabrera, and Kurt Young is coming out, and the A's pitching coach going to the mound.
It didn't help Kyle Seager last night in his confrontation with Jared Weaver when Weaver thought he was set. Seager was still asking for time, and he didn't like it. They jawed a little bit, then he hit him. He was ejected.
He's going to get hit by Jared Weaver. Jared doesn't throw especially hard, but still, you get hit in certain areas, it doesn't matter.
You understand where Weaver was coming from, but it's the 5th inning, and the Mariners and the Angels are playing up at Safeco, and the Angels are still alive, although they're sputtering right now, and they're still alive for the postseason. And I think Jared Weaver has to keep himself in the game.
Exactly.
And not only that, but he potentially can now be suspended for a start down the stretch, and Brian O'Nora was the one that ejected him.
Fernando Rodriguez is up and throwing in the bullpen for the A's. Fernando Rodriguez throwing. 2 on, 1 out. Tough hitter Melky Cabrera batting .308 since the 21st of June.
Can you see this right now with Garcia in the on-deck circle? He's a good 15 feet away. Of course, he's not paying attention to the pitcher, but anytime a hitter tries to get a better angle, watch the pitcher on the mound, he should move him back to the on-deck circle.
And Nolan fires a strike at the knees. Why don't they enforce that?
Because really a catcher should just look around and see. And there's so much going on between the pitcher, catcher, hitter, and umpire that they don't pay that much attention. But you see a lot of hitters will do that, and it kind of helps them to get the release point of the pitcher in that angle.
Here's the pitch, and swung on line up the middle, a base hit center field. Johnson's around third, up the ball Leidendorf. Fires the ball back to the infield, and the White Sox take the lead. 2-1 Chicago on a single to center by Melky Cabrera. Scoring Micah Johnson from second base. Alexi Ramirez went to second on the base hit.
And boy, one of the things from the A standpoint, and you talked about the starting pitchers and the ERA, how it's been inflated. The number of walks that have scored, and today, a one-out walk. Actually, back-to-back walks, but in the first one in scoring position, scores on a base hit, and you start walking batters. And I think Bob Melvin wanted Fengley to go out to get a little extra time for Fernando Rodriguez. I don't think Nolan's going to face Garcia.
Well, a bunch of right-handed hitters coming up here.
Bob seems like he's ready to come out, but he instructed Fengley to go out and talk and try to get him as many extra throws as he can in the bullpen if he's going to make the change.
You have Garcia, Soto, and Olt, all right-handed sticks. So it's 2-1. The White Sox have their fifth hit. 88 pitches for Nolan. And here's Avisail Garcia, who's 0 for 2. And now the delivery, and swung on and missed. Fastball up and away. Speaking of Bill King and the passing of Milo Hamilton today, they actually worked in the same league together. Different teams about 65 years ago. The old 3I League, which was really a big deal back then. Early 50s, back in these parts. The 0-1 to Avisail Garcia is swung on and missed. The count 0-2.
Illinois, Iowa, and Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
You know, our partner next to us worked with the great Milo Hamilton,
yes,
the Hall of Famer. Vince Cohen.
We were together for 7 years.
Yeah.
A lot of energy, a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of book work on a daily basis by Milo. He was into it every moment of every day. And worked both sides of Chicago, north side and south side.
Here's the pitch, and swung on a miss by Avisail Garcia. And so Garcia strikes out. That's a big K for Nolan. But what happened in those days is Garcia went after the pitch that was up for the second out, was that the broadcasters didn't travel in those days in the minor leagues generally. And so even though Bill and Milo worked in the same league at the same time, they never worked in the same press box. In other words, if Bill's team was at home, Milo would be back at the studio doing a recreation, which Bill would do when his team was on the road.
That's amazing they could do that. That they could recreate a game. As former President Reagan used to do that with the Cubs.
So 2 on and 2 out. Bottom of the fifth. And here it is, and it's taken outside. And as Bill said, and I wrote this in the Bill King book, it really helped him to learn how to be creative. You have to use your imagination, because the wire would break down all the time. You'd have to make up a lot of stuff, and you got the bare minimum in terms of information. Now the 1-0 pitch on the way, and it's taken for a strike on the outside corner. 1 ball, 1 strike by Giovanni Soto.
So more than on one occasion in those days, Robin Ventura came out a lot to talk to the umpire about something he couldn't understand was happening behind home plate.
Yeah, they'd make up rain delays and rhubarbs and all kinds of good stuff. Here's the 1-1 pitch to Soto by Nolan. Swung on a high fly ball. Left center field. Leitendorf back at the track. Has room in front of the wall, and he makes the catch. And Soto gives it a ride. But the White Sox take the lead. Nolan gives up his second run today, and after 5 complete, the White Sox on top of the A's 2-1. Hits an error. The A's a run on 3 hits and no errors. It's great to have you with us on radio and television from the South Side today as Jose Quintana works into the 6th inning and faces Canna, Laurie, and Valencia for the A's. It's a beautiful day, but it's windy. Partly cloudy skies in the Windy City. So here's Quintana to Canna. And the pitch on the way. And a breaking ball taken for a strike. There's a lot going on in this town right now, Ray. I mean, downtown it's hustle bustle right now. Tons of people out on the streets.
Because of the big race?
Well, Vince was a little bit late entering the triathlon. Here's the 0-1 pitch and swung on foul back out of play, and it's 0-2. He tried to get into the field.
Registration was closed.
Good.
Yeah. The USA Triathlon being contested this week.
They've got like thousands of life cycles sitting over in Grant Park.
Ready to go.
They're used by a lot of people wearing spandex.
And big conventions going on here.
That's always, though. They've got
always the case.
McCormick Center. McCormick Place.
McCormick Place, yeah. Just south of downtown. Off of Lakeshore Drive. Pitch taken for a ball by Canna. 1 ball, 2 strikes to Mark as he leads off in the 6th inning.
Are they up to 500,000 square feet in that place yet? Because it's huge.
It is.
Walk forever in a convention there.
Big event on the PGA Tour just north of downtown up in Lake Forest. Next to last event of the playoff series. So here's the 1-2 to Canna on the way, and it's swung on and fouled back. You wonder, Ray, if this wouldn't be a bad time for the A's to think about Barry Zito getting up in the bullpen.
Do you have a direct line to the pen? County Stadium, we used to call the bullpens from the other bullpen.
Did you really?
Oh, yeah. We'd get guys up in the middle of the...
You'd be in the visiting bullpen and you'd call the other bullpen?
Yeah, our home and call the visiting, because I played for the Brewers. We'd do it both ways. We had the number. We'd call them, get guys up. The manager would go down. What is he throwing? Why is he up?
Here's the 1-2 pitch and a breaking ball. Fly ball to center field. Playable for Shuck. He's there, 1 away. They didn't know that this was some kind of a... some hijinks going on?
No, you could, fake your voice and,
call out for pizza?
And it was, I did that too. But it was always great to look at the dugout and watch the manager and the pitching coach when they look down and see somebody throwing the bullpen. Immediately they get on the phone and say, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, you told me to get up and throw." I said, "No, I didn't." But it worked because you can wear them out.
There's Brett Laurie standing in. He's 1 for 2. The A's are batting in the 6th inning. They're down 2-1. And the pitch to Brett by Quintana is a strike on the outside corner. Looks like Fernando Rodriguez is back up throwing in the A's bullpen. So Nolan is probably done after 5. So Fernando heating up. And now the pitch, the 0-1. Off speed outside 1-1. White Sox in the Central Division, of course, where they're in 4th place. Kansas City closing in on the crown. Here's the 1-1 delivery by Jose Quintana, and outside the White Sox 4th place. KC leads the Twins by 10. The Indians 12.5. White Sox 15.5. Tigers 18, which is amazing when you think about it. Sox had a losing year last year. Here's the 2-1 pitch, and that just misses the outside corner. 3-1. Things are really interesting, Ray, in the wild card on this 17th of September.
And I was just going to say, because of that, there are teams that are still in the possibility of going to postseason. Last year, of course, a couple of wild card teams ended up going to the World Series.
Of course, it was the A's and the Royals in the American League wild card game as Laurie fouls it back and is 3-2. The Yankees have the top spot. The Astros now drop into the number 2 spot in the wild card. But then Minnesota is only a game and a half behind Houston. The Angels are 3.5 back, and the Indians are 4 back.
Never know.
So the 3-2 pitch is on the way, and a backdoor breaking ball popped up foul right side out of play. And that's even a team like Cleveland, and they've been hot. If they continue hot, they've got a shot.
And Terry Francona keeps getting his popsicles.
That's right.
I hope they're fruitsicles.
Those aren't popsicles above the out-of-town, above the big scoreboard in center field here, Ray?
Those were over Comiskey, weren't they?
Yes, they were. Here's the 3-2 delivery now to Brett Laurie. Swung on, bounced up the middle and through for a base hit. between the shortstop Ramirez and the bag at second. A wide turn by Laurie. Now Turns gets back to the bag, so the A's have the tying run on base with one out in the top of the 6th inning. So Laurie delivers the A's 4th hit.
It's always great to see when a hitter makes contact and how hard, quickly the ball gets through the infield. Sometimes the ball is hit, gives an infielder a chance to get to the ball, and then all of a sudden, in the case of Billy Butler's done it. Just saw Brett Laurie do it.
So here's Valencia with one out in the 6th inning, and Quintana fires and drops it low, 1-0. The Indians, last 20 games, they're 14-6. They're hosting Kansas City tonight with Corey Kluber against Yordano Ventura. The Royals aren't flying to the finish line. They're 3-9 in their last 12 games.
Just the opposite from last year.
Yep. Here's the pitch, the 1-0. That swung on, bounce to third, double play ball, flip to second, relay to first, around the horn, and on a hop, and a good play at first by Mike Gold. So Saladino, the third baseman, starts the double play, and quickly the top of the 6th inning comes to the end on a 5-4-3 twin killing. And we go to the bottom of the 6th, and the White Sox lead the A's 2-1. On top of the A's 2-1, and you can keep up with the pennant races in true HD quality on MLB.com Premium. Watch every out-of-market game live on more than 400 supported devices. Real-time highlights, live look-ins, pitch tracking widgets, and more. Visit MLB.tv today. The A's go to the bullpen for Fernando Rodriguez as Sean Nolan goes the first 5. He allowed 5 hits and 2 runs. And now Fernando comes out of the bullpen to pick up here in the 6th for the A's, who are trying to salvage a split of this 4-game series. 1 home run for the Sox against Nolan. That was the solo blast by Mike Olt in the 4th inning. U.S. Cellular Field. It opened back in '91. A lot of changes since then.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, for the better.
Especially with the upper Mount Davis.
They sliced a bunch of seats off the upper deck, which was really steep up there. So here's Mike Olt, the right-handed hitter. Came up with the Rangers. The pitch taken for a strike on the outside corner. Here's the pitch to Olt by Fernando, who's working from the stretch. And Rodriguez delivers and swung on, bounce to second. Laurie is right there, well positioned, flipped to first in time, 1 away, and that'll bring up J.B. Shuck. We mentioned Chris Bassett. He is hoping to get him back. And they're hoping to get Billy Burns back for the Astros series, which starts tomorrow night. He was doing some sprinting in the outfield before the game, so he's really coming along. He's been sidelined, hasn't played in this series with a hamstring problem.
Well, he has to come back to test Towles Hill again before they remove it before next season. You know, be able to run up that incline in center field, cover some outfield ground at Minute Maid Park. Need a good center fielder for that.
This is the last year of that, right?
Yeah, supposedly.
So here's J.B. Shuck, the former Angel, taking outside 1-0. 2-5-1 for the White Sox, 1-4-0 for the A's. But when you're a speed guy, and that's Billy Burns' game, you've got to get pretty close to 100%.
Yeah, hamstrings, any leg problems, you have to be 100%.
Here's the 1-0 pitch and taken low. We were talking about Frank Thomas. That was a different story. He just didn't care if he could run.
Right.
Just hit the ball out of the ballpark, which he did with 39 home runs back in 06. The big hurt.
Swisher, Milton Bradley, big hurt.
Here's the 2-0 delivery. It's on the way by Fernando. Swung on in a high pop-up. Short left field. Smolinski glasses down, angling toward the line.
Were you just getting ready to do a Ken Maka?
No, Vinny does a good Ken Maka.
Silence.
Well, you put your hands up like, you know.
But the thing about Frank in that year of the A's, 06, I mean, he told you, I'm looking for the ball inner half the whole time. I'm looking to pull the ball. I'm looking to hit it hard that way. He had to kind of change the approach that made him famous, which was using the entire field here.
Tyler Flowers is 1 for 2, a right-handed hitter. Rodriguez fires with 2 out. It swung on, popped up foul, right side, back out of play. The shadow line moving out, but right now the pitcher and the hitter are still in the sunshine.
At one time, Frank Thomas, and I did an interview with him, and he said, if the ball's outside, I go to right field. If the ball's down the middle, I go to center. If it's inside, I pull it. And to your point, he did change, Vinny, and you know, his power to all fields. But man, a pull hitter, much different for him.
Here's the 0-1 pitch. It's on the way, and it swung on and bounced foul down the first base line. Well, he got off to a tough start with the A's in 06.
Yeah.
There were a lot of questions about Frank. Maybe he was washed up. It was right here at his old ballpark when he came alive. And John Garland, I think, was the pitcher, wasn't he, Ray?
Yeah.
2 home runs, first ones. It was late May.
Yeah. Out to left field here.
Gave him a standing ovation and welcome him back. Was it Frank who hit the ball to the warning track in his first game against the Yankees? Thought it was a grand slam. It just barely made the track. The Coliseum. Welcome to Oakland.
The 0-2 by Rodriguez is swung on a foul tip. So Flowers stays alive. No balls and 2 strikes.
He wasn't the first, nor will he be the last.
I was going to say, Matt Holliday kind of experienced that after Coors Field, and then a fly ball to right field. He's trotting and didn't make the warning track.
That ball actually literally knocked the mask almost completely off the head of Fegley.
Yeah, that's Fegley's wearing a mask with a lot of padding around the face and the head, which is good, but it still is going to affect him.
0-2 to Tyler Flowers. 2 out, nobody aboard. And Rodriguez throws, and it swung on line and threw into right over the head of Canna, who went to the backhand side, a base hit. Reddick plays it back, and Flowers goes the other way. Base hit to right, and Saladino's coming up.
It looked like almost a swing from Flowers of a pitch that he didn't see, swung late, and happened to hit it to right field.
It's a pretty good pitch down and away.
Very good pitch and a very good swing, just kind of protected.
Reddick chasing it down, going into a slide in the corner, holding Flowers to a single. So 2 out in the 6th inning, 2-1 Chicago, and Tyler Saladino is coming up. Is there? I'll get to that in a second, Ray. Here's the pitch by Fernando. He is ready and throws, and it's taken low. Is there any way to learn how to catch a foul tip?
Nope. Absolutely zero. You put your glove up, you call fastball, you put your glove up, and the ball hits the bat, changes direction. You can't do it. I mean,
you can't react that quickly.
No. I mean, the ball's coming in and 90 plus, and by the time it hits the bat, it picks up speed. It's going to change direction. That's Stephen Vogt.
Here's the 1-0 pitch and taken outside. I was going to mention, Stephen, he's feeling better today. Was the best he's felt since the injury, so that was really encouraging.
And that's been a week ago Sunday. That's how long it has taken, but I think Bob Melvin, as a former catcher, realizes it's the worst I've ever seen. I know that. And to see that happen and to see him be able to come back and get on the treadmill and gradually start to walk and run again.
Here's the 2-0 delivery to Saladino. Long pause by Rodriguez, and Saladino, it's a fly ball to right. Reddick back, nearing the track, base of the track, and he makes the catch, and the inning is over. And we're through 6 innings in the final game of the series in Chicago, and the White Sox lead the A's 2-1. Six innings on the south side. The White Sox 2 runs, 6 hits, and error. The A's a run on 4 hits and no errors. The A's back home once again. It'll be Tuesday night. The A's against the Rangers, and the final 6 games at the Coliseum this year. We'd love to see you. 3 against Texas and 3 against the Giants. We go to the 7th inning, and once again, here's Vince.
New center fielder Leori Garcia now in there for J.B. Shuck, and he is batting in the 7th spot as Jose Quintana goes back to work against Billy Butler and Josh Reddick and Josh Phegley. Leori, outfielder and part-time pitcher. Butler is 0 for 2, a fly ball to right and a bouncing ball to short. As Quintana readies to start the 7th inning, and his first pitch is down and in, ball 1. His last 19 innings, Quintana covering 3 starts, and today is a part of that collection. Has allowed only 2 earned runs and 3 totals, so trying to finish with a flourish, looking for his 10th win of the year, trying to even that ledger, if you will. Here's the 1-0. It is off the plate outside, a changeup, ball 2. 2 balls and no strikes. Only 81 pitches so far from Quintana. Butler trying to start something. The A's down by 1. Of course, the 1-run games have really been a bugaboo for the Athletics this year. Here's the 2-0. It is a strike on the outside corner with a fastball. And now 2-1. The A's 16 and 32 in 1-run games. Third baseman Saladino deep and well off the line. And the pitch, strike over the inside corner. So Quintana trying to fill up the zone. And evens the count of 2 balls and 2 strikes. Right-hander Matt Albers, left-hander Zach Duke loosening in the Chicago bullpen. The A's bullpen is quiet. The 2-2, breaking ball chopped on the third base side, and that herein lies the issue regarding Barry Zito, is that A's want to see him pitch. A's fans certainly are clamoring for him to pitch, and everybody pointing towards September 26th. 1 inning in the last 6 weeks. He's on the active roster, but it's just not necessarily an automatic that he gets into a game, and maybe before this day is out he'll get at least an inning, but he hasn't gotten loose yet. Here's the 2-2. Swung on and missed. Went after a high fastball, and down he goes. So an elevated pitch from Quintana, and he K's Billy Butler. And that's the first out, and here comes Reddick. It's the first strikeout for Quintana since he struck out the side to start the game. So Barry's sitting in the A's bullpen and waiting for possibly that phone to ring to make his first major league appearance for the first time since 2013. Now Reddick stands in. Josh is 0 for 2, reached on an error, got a stolen base and caught at third. And hit a fly ball to deep right, takes a curve for a strike. It's 0-1.
And you think about Barry Zito throughout his great career, he was always a starter. And now he's sitting waiting, knowing as a starter when he was going to pitch, but as a reliever, not knowing.
0-1 pitch high. Routine, certainly an integral part. You know what I thought was interesting yesterday, Ray, and we talked about it on radio regarding Barry returning to the big leagues and returning to the A's for the first time since 06. There's no Tejada, there's no Mark Ellis, there's no Eric Chavez, Jason Giambi. 1-1 pitch foul back. As he came back to the A's, finished his side session and came in the dugout, it's like his best friends were Max Muncy and Tyler Ladendorf, guys that were with him the entire season for the most part at AAA Nashville, and treated them with the same respect that he would have treated any of his former major league teammates. Here's the 1-2. Swung on and missed. Got him on a breaking ball down and away. Reddick knew it. In the dirt. Picked up by Flowers. Throws to first for the second out. So the fifth strikeout for Quintana. The play completed 2-3. 2 outs. A's down 2-1 in the seventh. And here comes Fegley.
Now, what I've been reading, and is Mark Mulder coming in to work for the network? Are they planning to televise?
I think Mark Mulder's showing up in golf shorts.
Yeah,
and just going to hang out and watch and be a fan.
Right, exactly. I thought kind of that was kind of indicated, but they also indicated that might be televising those games. But I think more of being there to represent and be a part of that.
Now Fegley stands in. He takes wide ball one. I think he's coming in. He's going to get in around at the Olympic Club, and then he's going to come over and watch his two former buddies pitch potentially against each other with Tim Hudson and Barry Zito. Here's the 1-0. Fastball in there for a strike, and it's 1-1.
That may change though. He's bringing his family with him. So kids will say, no, Dad, we're going to go play a little bit before we go to the game.
Fegley has scored the A's only run. He doubled and scored the lead off the third. Then fly ball to left his next time up. He swings and pops one up behind first base in foul ground. Alt over near the seats, and it's about 4 rows in. So no chance to make a play. And it's 1 ball and 2 strikes. Alt playing at first base. Replacing Jose Abreu, who didn't start today. Abreu quite a force in this series. He had a total of 7 hits in the series, including a couple of home runs. 2 runs on 6 hits, an error for Chicago. 1 run, 4 hits, no errors for the A's. And a 1-2 pitch. Breaking ball low. 2 balls and 2 strikes. Felix Dubron for the A's in Houston against Mike Fiers tomorrow night. 7:10 or 5:10 first pitch on the A's radio network and also on Comcast Sportsnet California. Quintana keeps the glove down near the belt. The slow turn, and now the lefty's pitch. Backdoor breaking ball, missing low and outside. Tantalizing as it was, Fegley laid off of it to fill the count. Jake Smolinski waiting on deck. The advantage in this ballpark in a close game is that you are really one swing away from tying or taking the lead. It can happen rather quickly here. Payoff, swung on and missed. Got him soft, and down he goes on strikes. So Quintana struck out the side of the first, and he just struck out the side of the top of the seventh. We stretch on the south side. White Sox in front 2-1. 10 seconds station identification on the A's radio network. Back on the south side of Chicago, White Sox leading the A's 2-1, and Fernando Rodriguez back for a second inning of relief with Ken Korak and Ray Fosse. Vince Cotroneo with you. Fernando in relief of Sean Nolan, who went 5 innings today. And Rodriguez will get the top of the order with Micah Johnson, Alexi Ramirez, and Melky Cabrera. So here's Johnson. He walked, balked a second, scored on a base hit by Cabrera in the 5th inning. That's the difference in the game. And he takes outside ball 1. Although in retrospect he would have, if it played out the same way, we don't know if it would have. But he would have been at second base anyway with the back-to-back walks, starting that with 1 out in that inning from Sean Nolan. Here's the 1-0 pitch. And it's outside on Johnson. Left-hand batter. Ball 2. 2 balls and no strikes.
Just made an announcement that Shuck left because of hamstring injury.
Wow.
Tightness in his left hamstring.
It is a marathon, 162 games. It does test the metal of your body. Here's the 2-0. Swung on, fouled off to the left. Read a story today, although the Pirates lost to the Cubs 9-6 today. They have, if not the fewest, among the fewest DL days among their regulars in baseball this year. And they have a specific, they're not going to tell you what it is, but a specific, analytic that they use, the way they evaluate how to rest players. 2-1 offer. Swung on, foul back. 2 balls and 2 strikes. And like last night in game 2 of their doubleheader against the Cubs, Clint Hurdle rested a lot of the regulars, and he just simply said, it's something that we pay close attention to right now.
Do you know, in the offseason when the Warriors were having their run, it was noted that the Pirates were following what Steve Kerr and the Warriors did with regard to perhaps what you're talking about.
The set, the 2-2, swung on, fouled off. In the NBA, it's met with furor.
Yeah.
If you're a guy buying a ticket to watch the Warriors, and that night Steph Curry happens to have the night off, or Klay Thompson, or if you're watching Cleveland and LeBron has the night off, but it is by design just tougher to do when there's fewer games, and they only come to town once a year.
Right. The San Antonio Spurs did that a lot. They were at the forefront of it.
Another 2-2 pitch. Curveball swung on and nicked at the plate. And Fegley can't hold on. The count stays even.
Guys like Tim Duncan have been around forever. Tony Parker. They got a lot of days off during the season.
But every time we talk about this, has anybody talked to Cal Ripken Jr.? I mean, really? He did something that's unheard of. Nobody will ever break that record. And, they say records are made to be broken. I'm sorry. Nobody will ever play 26-32 consecutively.
And the 2-2 pitch. It is a. Whoa! Where was that? Fernando thought the inning was over, as did everybody else, except the plate umpire, DJ Rayburn. Perfectly hit the mitt. Fegley was ready to fire it around the horn. Fernando turned his back, but Rayburn thought it was just a hair outside. So a full count. And here comes the 3-2 offer. Swung on and sent towards center. Gliding back on it is Leidendorf. And Tyler will get to it before the track, makes the catch, and there's 1 out.
On one hand, when they grade the umpires based on balls and strikes, that pitch probably will be regarded as a good pitch because they go beyond the plate with regard to, let's say, a ball, half a baseball, whatever. So if that comes within those guidelines, the plate being 17 inches wide, if the ball is on the corner, could be called a strike, but it's called a ball. They'll look at it and say, well, he didn't make a mistake.
At least to credit from the A's, while they might have been frustrated, we didn't see DJ Rayburn turn his head toward the A's dugout. There wasn't a whole lot of barking from that side. A's down 2-1 in the 7th. Here's Alexi Ramirez. And he swings and slaps one sharply on the ground, but right there up the middle is the second baseman, Laurie, on to first in time.
Well, I think just as important after the 3-1, you think it's strike 3, but didn't come back to throw another strike. And even though Johnson hit it hard to center field, at least he got the out instead of walking him on another pitch.
The A's minor league report brought to you by Scharf Investments. Visit WeLikeValue.com to see how Scharf Investments can help you achieve value in your investment portfolio. Double-A Midland is off today They lead their Texas League Championship Series against Northwest Arkansas 2-0 after winning last night 8-6. As Matt Albers continues to loosen in the bullpen. And the pitch outside a ball, and it's 1-0. Parker Frazier will start tomorrow night. They're off today, and they'll resume the series tomorrow. Parker Frazier gets game 3 for Ryan Christensen and the Rockhounds. Here's the 1-0. It is a high strike and at the belt on Cabrera, who drove in the go-ahead run in the 5th inning. His 71st RBI.
There are a bunch of guys on that team that we would love to see in spring training, and I'm sure we will.
Well, we saw a few of them this year as well. Nunez and Olson and Pinder a little bit. All who had great years. In fact, congratulations to Chad Pinder, the Texas League Player of the Year. The next delivery is low. Ball 2. 2 balls and a strike.
He's been hurt, though, and they called up Yairo Munoz from Single A to join the Double A club. Sean Manaea has been outstanding since the A's acquired him from Kansas City in the Zobrist deal. Pitched 8 innings in the first game of that playoff series.
2 outs and nobody on for the White Sox. They lead it 2-1 in the 7th. A swing and a rocket into right center field. Over toward the alleys. Laydorf cuts it off, turns, and quickly sends it back to the infield. A crisp single for Melky Cabrera. His 2nd today and his 9th in the series. Cabrera 9 for 17 against the A's. That guy could just flat out hit.
Especially from the left side.
But he beat the A's right-handed in the 14-inning game.
I just when he had the bases loaded and hit right-handed, could have had a 6-2-3 double play. Did force out the runner at the plate.
That was in the 9th inning, wasn't it? Ground ball to Simeon, Abad on the mound.
And now Garcia, he's 0 for 3. Pop up to short, a couple of strikeouts. And Fernando to the plate. And he catches the inside corner, strike 1. No activity in the A's bullpen right now. Down 2-1 in the 7th. Matt Albers ready to go for Chicago for the 8th inning in relief of Jose Quintana, who, if he is done, finished with a flourish by striking out the side. Here's the 0-1. Swung on, fouled back. And it is 0-2. And right on cue, the A's bullpen does begin some activity. And it is the right-hander Ryan Dull, who's been anything but in this September call-up. What a fun time it has been to watch Ryan Dull with his 7 appearances, 9 innings, 11 strikeouts, and no runs allowed. Ryan Dull began the year at Double-A Midland. A long hole by Fernando, and now to the plate. Swing and a miss. 94, and down goes Garcia on some high octane, and the inning is over. Through 7, Fernando keeps it right where it was. 2 scoreless innings, and on to the 8th. Oakland trailing 2-1. 1 in the city with big shoulders. White Sox leading, and the A's are going to go to their bench to start the 8th inning as the White Sox go to the bullpen. To tell you about that and take you the rest of the way and get us safe and sound and back to the Lone Star State. Once again, here's Ken.
On the banks of Lake Michigan, and Matt Albers comes out of the bullpen to work for the White Sox, and Sam Fuld is going to pinch hit for the A's. Albers has been on a great run. Last 15 games, he's authored 18 2/3 innings of scoreless baseball. So 2-1 in favor of the White Sox. Fuld standing in batting for Smolinski, taking a strike, and it's 0-1. Sam Fuld is batting at 203. He's played a lot recently in the absence of Billy Burns, and a breaking ball is taken for a strike, and it's 0-2. So for Jose Quintana, he goes 7. He allows 4 hits and a run. He walked 1 and struck out 6. Albers out of the stretch, and he delivers, and Fuld a ground ball to second. Micah Johnson is right there and throws to first for the out. That's 1 away. With the A's down 2-1. And Coco Crisp is going to bat. So Coco will hit for Ladendorf. Ladendorf batting in the 9 spot was 0 for 2. So Coco, who's had a good run as a pinch hitter, it's been a good year for the A's pinch hitters, Ray.
Recently.
Last 17 games, and pinch hitting is one of the toughest things to do in baseball. Last 17 games, the A's pinch hitters are 13 for 21. You just don't do that.
No, and the early part of the season, it's good to see them pick it up and have a better at-bats and better average, because at one time it was about $1.85 total.
Albers fires. It's cued to third and taken there right off the grass by the third baseman Saladino. 1 pitch and Coco is out. So 2 out in the 8th inning. And that'll bring up top of the order Marcus Semien right off the end of the bat. And right to Saladino. So now Semien on his birthday struck out, singled, and fly to left. Another half inning or so, it'll be the pitcher in the sun and the hitter in the shade. As we approach 3:30 Central Time, and Marcus takes a strike on the outside corner. The well-traveled Matt Albers. One thing that is just confounding here, Ray, has been what's happened to Jeff Samardzija. Here's the 0-1 pitch, and swung on dribble foul left of the plate. Jeff Samardzija has a 5.27 ERA, and he's allowed 219 hits in 198 innings.
If a pitcher pitches to contact, and sometimes the defense isn't working behind him, and just like the ground ball in the first inning, here could have been a double play out of the inning, no runs. They end up scoring 5.
The 0-2 is outside, 1 ball, 2 strikes to Semien.
Ground ball that Billy Butler hit. That could have easily been a 6-4-3 double play, but another foot closer to Ramirez. It was not into center field. The A's got 3 hits for 2 outs. I don't know. I think it's just one of those years, and you just look at. I think Cabrera had a tough night when he's playing left field. Samardzija, a couple of balls hit his direction.
Here's the 1-2 pitch, a soft line drive, 1-hop dugout at second. Throw to first by Johnson is in time. And for Matt Albers, he keeps his scoreless streak alive. Semien is out. The A's go down 1-2-3, and we go to the bottom of the 8th. And the White Sox lead the A's 2-1. The A's by 1. It's 2-1. Sam Fuld stays in the game for the A's, and he's out in left field. And Coco Crisp, after he pinch hit, he stays in. Well, Fuld is in center and Coco's in left. So Coco is in the game in left field with Fuld in center, and Josh Reddick patrolling right as Sean Doolittle comes out of the A's bullpen to pick up here in the bottom of the 8th with the A's trailing 2-1.
He came out of a bullpen that is a team with Barry Zito, who he was drafted for in 2007 as a compensation pick when Barry signed the deal with the Giants.
It's a good note. And Sean hasn't pitched since Saturday in Texas, when he finished up the ball game and allowed 3 hits and 2 runs, working 1 inning, and he fires a pitch that's outside and taken by Giovanni Soto, the right-handed hitter who's DHing today. 2 runs, 7 hits, an error for the White Sox. 1-4-0 for the A's. And Doolittle fires, and it's swung on a big cut by Soto. The wind has picked up.
I think if Stu Miller were pitching today, it'd blow him off the mound.
Like the All-Star game in San Francisco. Here's the 1-1 delivery, and that swung on bounce foul, third base side, pretty much coming out of the south.
South on the south side, so that's pretty good because it is blowing and has blown hard for 4 days.
The closer for the White Sox, David Robertson, the former Yankee, throwing in their pen.
Cutter.
Here's the 1-2 to Soto on the way by Doolittle, and it's popped up right side. That's going to be foul, back out of play. And 1 ball, 2 strikes. So you think Samardzija is going to be okay next year? He's going to be a free agent. It'll be interesting to see what kind of a deal he gets.
I think he'll get a good deal. He could do one of 2 things. He could sign a 1-year contract and put up some good numbers, then sign a multi-year deal like some position players have done. But I just think it's one of those years. I think as long as he's healthy, he's going to make quality pitches for somebody.
Here's the 1-2 off speed high, and it's 2-2 to Giovanni Soto. Speaking of quality pitches, Ray, on this date in A's history back in '72, Catfish fired a 2-hitter. The A's beat the Rangers 4-1, and for Catfish, it was win number 20. 2-2 is a broken bat loop on the infield. Laurie at second coming in, corrals it, 1 away. That was the second of 4 consecutive 20-win seasons for Catfish on this date back in '72.
Yeah, he was unbelievable.
Mike Old is coming up against Doolittle.
Good to see the fastball thrown well enough that Soto broke his bat, shattered his bat, a little bloop to second baseman Laurie. So Sean Doolittle's fastball, a good one, and we've seen the velocity pick up considerably since he came back.
Mike Old swings and fouls it back to the right, a fastball 92, and no balls and 1 strike. In the top of the 9th inning against Robertson, the A's will have 2, 3, and 4. Canna, Laurie, and Valencia. 2-1 in favor of Chicago. Doolittle from the stretch, and the A's lefty deals, and that's inside. And the count 1-1. This date back in '73, Ray, your first year with the ball club. Billy North set a club record by walking 5 times. The A's play the Angels that day. Here's the 1-1 on the way, and taken inside 2-1. And in 13, the A's beat the Halos 3-2. 5 walks for Billy North. He could play some center field.
Yes, he could. Good base stealer. He and Camp at the top of the batting order to set the table for the guys 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
The 2-1 to Olt is swung on and missed. Big cut fastball 93. You can see Doolittle growing in confidence with every outing.
Well, whenever he saved the game, when he threw back-to-back games and had it against the Houston Astros, you could see that he was a closer on that day.
Here's the 2-2 and swung on and missed. Up and away with the fastball, and Olt is blown away, and that's when Doolittle was really on his game before he got hurt, Ray. The hitters just couldn't catch up to that high fastball.
Well, and I mentioned being a closer, and I think what we've seen this year with the A's that several guys have tried, but none have done in the season what Doolittle has done since he has become a closer. And it's just that different mentality. It's the belief that you're the closer. The game is over. I'm going to challenge you with fastballs, elevate some, maybe trick you every once in a while, but basically here comes the fastball.
And the pitch, a foul tip off the bat of Leury Garcia, who replaced the injured J.B. Shuck in center field for the White Sox. And Doolittle's 0-1 pitch with 2 out. and Sean deals, and it's high and outside, 1-1. The A's have pitched well today. Sean Nolan went 5 innings. He allowed 5 hits and 2 runs. He walked 3, struck out 4. Fernando Rodriguez, 2 innings, 2 hits, no runs, no walks, 1 strikeout. The 1-1 pitch, and swung on, bounce to the right side, near the bag at first. Canna has it, goes to the bag, and for Doolittle, it's a 1-2-3, bottom of the 8th inning. Last chance for the A's as we go to the 9th, and the White Sox lead the A's 2-1. It's 2-1, and the most popular way to follow the action of A's baseball is with MLB.com at bat, the #1 app for live baseball. Enjoy live look-ins, highlights, replay reviews, scores, StatCast, live radio broadcasts, and more. Get the MLB.com at bat app now. The closer for the White Sox, the one-time Yankee David Robertson, comes out of the bullpen. He faced the A's in the first game of the series, and when he came in the game, he had retired 26 consecutive batters, but in one of the most bizarre 9th inning comebacks you'll ever see, the A's got him for 4 runs. 2 of those were earned. And as Robertson goes to work, the A's have Mark Canha leading it off with the A's down by a run.
And that was a non-save situation, and sometimes it works out the worst for a pitcher in that regard, and especially every time 26 consecutive. So 1 batter away from a perfect game.
But that was a weird inning.
It was very weird.
I mean, a strikeout, catcher's interference. Here's the pitch, and taken inside. Actually, a strikeout wild pitch in the inning, and also catcher's interference. Another wild pitch, another walk, and the A's scored 4 times and tied it up.
And the White Sox lost a right fielder and Trace Thompson on a diving effort that hyperextended his left elbow.
Hasn't played since, and now the 1-0 pitch to Canha by Robertson is swung on and fouled back, and it's 1-1.
And if it's not a double, Lowry going to second to strike out to Valencia, he can't advance to first because of the wild pitch. So all things happen, and I guess the Angels probably were looking at the game saying, we had one of those 9th innings against the Astros.
So 1 ball, 1 strike. That was off of Houston Street.
Yeah.
So here's the pitch by Robertson out of the stretch with the A's down 2-1 in the 9th. And here it is, and it's swung on by Canha, popped up back at first. A long run down the right field line, and Garcia is going to get there, and the right fielder makes the catch 1 away.
Cutter
is out. Brett Lawrie coming up.
Cutter is such a good pitch, and sure Robertson learned it from the great Mariano Rivera when he pitched for the Yankees in their bullpen. And I mean, why not? You look at his, I mean, that's pretty much all he throws. Everything's a cutter, and he's got very good velocity like Mariano.
So that'll bring up Lawrie, and Brett's 2 for 3 today. He has half the A's hits. Stands in batting .272. Now the hitter in the shade, the pitcher in the sunshine. And here's the pitch to Brett by Robertson, and it's on the way, and that's taken outside. Just one other ball game played in the daytime this afternoon, and the Cubs beat the Pirates in Pittsburgh 9-6 behind Clayton Richard over Charlie Morton. Anthony Rizzo, home run number 30 for Chicago. Here's the 1-0 pitch, and that's taken low, 2-0. Snyder, Polanco, and Alvarez went deep for Pittsburgh. Alvarez number 24. The Cardinals are playing later. Up in Milwaukee, the Cardinals have won 3 straight. The Brewers have lost 5 in a row. So 2 balls, no strikes to Laurie. And here it is by Robertson. And that swung on line to left, down the line, hooking base hit, extra bases. Laurie turning at first. He's going to go to second. Cabrera plays it back. And with 1 out in the 9th inning, the A's have the tying run in scoring position.
Well, it's Laurie who led it off a couple of nights ago and against Robertson in the 4-run 9th inning. And
a 3-hit game for Brett Laurie.
And Robertson must have taken a little bit off of that pitch, because for Laurie to get out in front and hook it down the line. As the good cutter that Canna hit was popped up to the right side. So a couple of opportunities for the A's.
So Danny Valencia standing in. 2-1 Chicago. Right-handed hitter, right-handed pitcher. Robertson sets, turns, and throws, and misses inside 1-0. So for now, over in the NL Central, with the Cardinals playing later, the Pirates are 4.5 back, and the Cubs are back by 6.5. And they would be the wild card teams the way things look. So now the 1-0 delivery. Robertson out of the stretch. And here it is. And Danny takes outside. Now it's 2-0 with Billy Butler on deck. Billy is 0 for 3 today. Outfield, hitting room in right center. Now the count 2-0. Off the bag at second is Laurie. And the pitch by Robertson, here it is, and that's a strike outside corner at the knees. Good pitch at 92. David Robertson is 6-3 with a 2.72 ERA. He's looking for save number 30. And that hit by Laurie was the 38th against this righty in 56 2/3 innings. Signed as a free agent this past offseason. And here's the 2-1 pitch by Robertson. He throws, and it's swung on line to left, base hit. Laurie had to wait. He goes to third. Wash will hold him, and the A's have runners at first and third and 1 out. Laurie had to wait to make sure the ball was over the head of the shortstop Alexi Ramirez. And so now the A's have the tying run at third, the winning run at first, and Billy Butler is coming up in the 9th inning.
Same pitch that Valencia looked like he was having some question marks about the pitch. The home plate umpire. Cut fastball down and away, got the same pitch and hammered to left field.
Here's the one thing the A's have to avoid right here, Ray, is the double play.
That's right.
Double play ends the game.
That's right. They'll play for 2. So all Billy Butler has to do is think right field, take the big hole between first and second, either ground ball or line drive. Don't get out front and roll over on a cutter, and just go with it to right field. And then A's tie the game and maybe have a runner at third base again.
And the infield is back looking for 2. 2-1 White Sox. 1 out in the 9th. And Robertson throws, and Billy swings and misses on a cutter away with good velocity. Yeah. Tough pitch to hit. And it's 0-1. They pinch up the middle for 2 with the shortstop Ramirez, the second baseman Micah Johnson.
But Billy was not thinking right field with that pitch. You have to think outside. If he pitches inside, it's a purpose pitch. Think away, go away.
Here's the 0-1 delivery by the right-hander Robertson, and Butler hits a fly ball deep right field. Garcia going back at the track, right to the wall. He leaps at the wall and he makes the catch, I think, or did it get out?
It went out.
It got out. It's a 3-run home run to right field by Billy Butler, and the A's have done it once again against David Robertson as they've taken the lead in the 9th inning. It is 4-2 in favor of the A's. Billy Butler goes the other way and hits it out just over the reach of the right fielder Avisail Garcia, and it's 4-2 A's in the 9th.
What a great adjustment by Billy Butler, and that is his power. That's what he has done. Garcia, he had it in his glove, and the top of the wall dislodged it. Wow.
He had it in the glove at the top of the wall, and like you said, when he hit his wrist on the top of the wall, and it popped out of the mitt. And the A's lead 4-2 in the 9th, and Reddick swings and misses, and the count to Reddick is 0-1.
Well, Valencia got almost to second base, then looked like he was going to head back to first, And then at that point, maybe they saw the ball drop on the other side of the fence.
Here's the 0-1 pitch, and swung on and missed by Reddick, and the count 0-2. So Billy Butler has homered in back-to-back games.
And that,
well, you were talking about going the other way.
Well, he has to do that, and that's why he talked yesterday in the A's warm-up about adjustments they didn't make working with Darren Bush, and that's one of them. Go back to his strength.
And the pitch, Reddick takes low, and the count 1-2 to Reddick.
This keeps the home run streak alive, the newest one after it ended with Kobe Lewis to start the road trip.
Abisail Garcia doing some pacing out in right field. He's a big kid. He went up as high as he could, had the ball in the mitt, and the ball popped out when his wrist hit the top of the fence.
But he has robbed some. I mean, he can jump and get way up high over the fence, and he has robbed some hitters of home runs. And that one, the wrist on the top, stopped him.
The 1-2 is high, 2 balls and 2 strikes. It is the 13th home run for Billy Butler. It's a 3-run shot. In RBIs 60, 61, and 62 for the A's DH. And the 2-2 pitch, Reddick waits, and it's taken high, 3-2. You never know, Ray. David Robertson, 26 consecutive batters retired. He's given up 7 runs in less than 2 innings against the A's this week.
And remember, Doolittle pitched the bottom of the 8th, and he looks like he's going to go out for the 9th and try to win it, not save it.
And the pitch on the way is high, and Reddick walks. So the A's keep the line moving. A 1-out walk to Reddick with the A's on top 4-2. And that'll bring up Josh Phegley, the former White Sox, 1 for 3. So off the Canna fly out, Laurie double, Valencia single to left. Wash had to stop Laurie over at third. The A's have first and third. Butler homers to right. A's lead 4-2. And now Phegley stands in. And it was Reddick the other night, Ray. We were talking about the catcher's interference, and he reached, and then Coco was able to reach with a bases loaded walk, and then Sam Fuld with a base hit to right field, driving in 2, and the A's tied it up.
And then a cross up on a pass ball that over the glove and the head of Tyler Flowers.
That scored the 4th run. That was the tying run.
The only other part that really would have been fitting was for Marcus Semien, who lined hard to center field, for that ball to drop in and let the go-ahead run, and the A's could have won in regulation instead of playing forever.
So after the walk to Reddick, here's Phegley. The A's get a right-hander up in the bullpen. It looks like Ryan Dull.
That's right. He may side it. Maybe Sean Doolittle can't come out for the 9th.
Here's the pitch by Robertson, and he drops it low. That was a breaking ball on the count 1-0. So Dull throwing in the pen after Doolittle worked a 1-2-3 bottom of the 8th inning.
By the way, Billy Butler has 4 homers and 14 RBIs this month.
Yeah, it's a good point. And the 1-0 pitch by David Robertson, and that's a strike on the outside cone, and he entered the game batting .386 for his previous 16 games.
And he almost hit another one out. Hit one out to left center, and it came close to one in the previous at bat. And last night, for him to hit a ball to left center, but still from center field, right field, some big hits that direction.
So the 1-1 pitch instead of throw to first, and Reddick dives back.
Again, the one thing for a team that's facing, in this case, Robertson, closer, 1-run lead, you try to keep it at 1. You do so many things, and had Garcia even made this spectacular play, the A's going to tie the game, at least at that point, and that's what you want to try to do, make it a 1-run deficit as you go in the 9th inning.
Here's the 1-1 pitch, and it's low, and oftentimes that's up to the relievers. And you look today at Fernando Rodriguez and Doolittle worked 3 innings. They allowed 2 hits and no runs after Sean Nolan went the first 5. 2-1 to Phegley. Hitting room in right center, very deep in right, Garcia. Here's the 2-1 pitch. Runner going. It's swung on a missed throw to second, and the tag, and out at second base is Reddick. And Phegley trying to protect the runner, Ray, went after a bad ball. Reddick caught stealing 2-4 as the second baseman Johnson took the throw in the bag.
And with that in mind, it could have been a hit and run. Tyler Flowers made a great throw, almost just no crow hop. He just caught the ball, took 1 step to second, made a perfect throw. Release time was excellent. And for Phegley to swing at that, it might have been a hit and run, just trying to protect what you want to do as a hitter.
So Fegley swings and fouls it back. The White Sox, Flowers, Saladino, and Johnson due up in the bottom of the ninth.
And Abreu.
I was just thinking the same thing. You wonder if somebody gets on base, if we'll see Mr. Abreu.
Unless Robin Ventura told him, don't even put on cleats, don't even come to the dugout, just take the day off. But it's a nice little right-handed power to have available.
Now the 2-2 pitch, and Fegley swings and misses. He strikes out. The tag applied by Flowers, but the big blow off the bat of Billy Butler, who is suddenly red hot for the A's. A 3-run top of the ninth, and we go to the bottom of the ninth inning as Butler goes the other way to shoot the A's in front. As after 8.5, it's the A's 4 and the White Sox 2. Billy Butler home run has given the A's the lead. It's 4-2 in favor of the Athletics, and Doolittle stays in the game for the A's, as the White Sox will come up with Tyler Flowers leading it off. So for the A's, 4 runs on 7 hits and no errors. The White Sox 2 runs, 7 hits and error. Boy, this is really the Billy Butler the A's were hoping to see this year when the A's signed him to the 3-year deal after he had shined for so many years with Kansas City.
And I think it's going to carry forward into 2016. And just like from the team, and you're talking about Samardzija, a lot of things. And, you know, this season's going to end. You can look back and say it's been a tough year for the Athletics, but there's been some positive things. And I think for Butler, he's going to carry forward in a good way.
Flowers is 2 for 3, and Doolittle's pitch is lined to right. That's sinking. Reddick coming on, and he's not going to get there. It's a base hit, a soft line drive into right. A base hit by Flowers, so the tying run is coming up. So 1 pitch and Flowers is aboard. The next batter will be Tyler Saladino.
Trace Thompson's going to pinch run for him.
So of course the brother of Clay, the son of Michael Thompson, the 2-time NBA champion with the Lakers. How many pitches do you think the A's will let Doolittle throw here, Ray? After he worked the 8th inning, he retired the side 1, 2, 3. Didn't throw that many pitches.
Threw 12 pitches, but it's the sit down, coming back out, and different type of adrenaline because he came in with the A's trailing by a run. Now he's got to regroup after sitting and get the adrenaline pumping again and try to close it out.
So Trace Thompson pitch running at first, and the pitch to Saladino is taken low, and it's 1-0, and Jose Abreu is on deck.
Yep. And that's maybe why Dull is warming up.
Yeah, Dull back up throwing in the pen.
But to answer your question, I don't know. I think it's more of just how he looks and how he's dealing with these hitters.
And here's the pitch, and that's taken a strike, a fastball 92, 1-1. We haven't seen Adam LaRoche in the series.
No.
He's been out with a bad knee, and he's really had a tough year in his first year here. Here's the 1-1 delivery, and it's swung on fouled off of Saladino. So Dull throwing in the bullpen. Doolittle working in the bottom of the ninth as the A's lead 4-2. Situation a little complicated, I think, when they acquired LaRoche, because both LaRoche and Abreu, they're first basemen, and neither one had really done a whole lot of DHing.
And there was talk also that when Adam Dunn was signed from the Nationals, came over to DH, did not have a lot of success, and the same with LaRoche. It's tough to do.
Here's the 1-2 delivery, and it's swung on a comebacker taken by Doolittle. He flips to Semien. He goes to first, and the A's get a 1-6-3 double play. And that diffuses the White Sox rally in a hurry. On a 1-6-3, and well played by Doolittle, and then Semien in the middle, and on to Canna, quickly 2 away.
And Abreu back in the dugout. No reason for him to try to hit a solo home run when they're down by 2, so they'll wait, see if they can get another runner on. But what a double play, and for Sean Doolittle to know who was going to be covering at second, and then made the perfect throw and a completion from Semien to complete the double play.
Gordon Beckham is going to pitch hit here. Well, that, you mentioned the key thing right there, and that is as soon as the A's had the double play, Abreu took a left turn, headed back to the dugout.
And really, a solo home run does not help them. And you get somebody on base, and of course, with Flowers getting on, then at least if there's going to be a runner on with one swing and a chance to tie it, but with a double play, different story.
So 4-2 A's, and Gordon Beckham hits it foul, the former #1 pick of the White Sox. Spent some time last year with the Angels. 2 out, bottom of the 9th, 4-2 A's. The A's have the shift on the infield for Beckham, and just Canna on the right side. It's Doolittle's game to win.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
David Robertson's game to lose.
And a blown save for him.
Yep. And here's the 0-1 pitch. Swung on and missed fastball up and away. At 93 to Gordon Beckham.
And Beckham's such a different player than when we first saw him make his debut at third base right here. And went to the Angels, came back to the White Sox, but not really playing that much. Tough job right here.
So the 0-2 with 2 out. And Doolittle sets, ready, and throws. And it's high. Fastball 93, 1-2.
Again, that's an easy 93 too, which is good to see. And this could be a huge boost for Sean, and may take his availability away tomorrow night, but trying to win this game today.
Here's the 1-2 pitch, and Beckham hits a high pop right side, foul territory. Canna toward the dugout, Fegley toward the dugout. It lands in the A's dugout. At the Coliseum, this game's over. Yeah, it's all over. Well, if you're hurt, it doesn't look free and easy. Right?
Exactly.
Talking about a pitcher.
No, absolutely. But I think, too, your point earlier about the confidence, and the A's have lacked that this year. And the funny thing with Dole warming up, had he come in to close out the 9th, it's probably going to be reversed, because that young man has proven that he can pitch here, and he might be the setup the A's have been looking for to get to Doolittle. But the key is for Doolittle to be in the closer role, to have the confidence to close out games.
Here's the 1-2 with 2 out in the 9th, and it's high 2-2 with the A's leading 4-2 and nobody on. Well, if the A's have the lead late tomorrow night, I would think it would be dull to close the game.
But so many people say anybody can close the game. The 9th inning is special. Usually if you're a closer and you're pitching the 9th, there's nobody behind you.
It's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, and I think this year the A's have seen that. Tyler Clippett came over.
Remember when the A's had Arthur Rhodes, who was a great setup man, but the adapting to the closer role, it just didn't happen for him.
But it's a different mindset, and I think Sean Doolittle was a very good first baseman. It was a setup. I mean, became a pitcher. All of a sudden he's through in the minor leagues. But as a closer, you can see that confidence is there in that role.
So the 2-2 delivery, and Doolittle throws, and Beckham fouls it back. Good battle here. So for Sean, that's 25 pitches.
And for Sean, with a count of 2-2, he almost has to stay with the fastball and take the chance, make Beckham earn his way on instead of trying to think off speed. And if he does, it's got to be a perfect strike, because otherwise he knows he's going to have to throw a fastball.
Here's the 2-2 on the way, and swung on and missed. He throws a fastball by him at 94. So Doolittle gets the win, actually saves his own win in a sense. And a great come from behind victory by the A's, keyed by Billy Butler's home run in the top of the 9th inning off David Robertson. As the Athletics, with the big rally off Robertson in the 9th inning, Ray, with the double by Brett Lawrie, and then the single by Danny Valencia, and then finally the home run to right field by Butler that just eluded after Garcia had the ball in his glove. And then Doolittle finishes things off as the A's beat the Sox 4-2.
You know, a quicker game that's happened in the first three, and I think for the A's, knowing they needed a win this afternoon to have the series, and I think this could help them going in to play Houston this weekend and go home to play 3 against the Rangers, 3 against the Giants before 3 against the Angels. So some